Before the sun reaches the edges of the earth, before the birds sing their first songs to the cold morning air, there is a soft, rhythmic sound in the dark. It is the sound of flint striking steel. A small spark falls, catches a dry piece of linen, and a tiny warm glow appears in the darkness of a modest medieval kitchen, welcome to a time forgotten by modern clocks. Close your eyes, breathe in slowly, and let your mind drift back hundreds of years into the gentle, quiet world of a medieval cook. Tonight, we leave behind the noise of the 21st century. We step into a life measured not by minutes, but by the slow burning of wood, the rising of dough, and the steady turning of the seasons. You are safe here, wrapped in the soft shadows of history. For a poor cook in the Middle Ages, the day does not begin with light, but with the responsibility of creating it. The kitchen is cold, the stone floor cools the feet, and the air smells of old oak wood, dried herbs hanging from the beams, and the faint, sweet memory of yesterday's hearth. Listen closely to the silence. It is not an empty silence, but a peaceful one, filled with the anticipation of honest labour. The cook moves quietly, knowing the household still sleeps. Every movement is deliberate, a dance practiced over thousands of mornings. The first task is always the fire. Without the fire, there is no warmth, no food, no life in this home. The small spark is gently blown upon, its light growing from a deep orange to a bright, comforting yellow as it catches the small twigs and dry leaves. The wood crackles softly, a gentle rhythmic sound that warms the cold room and casts long dancing shadows on the whitewashed walls. For those who lived in medieval Europe, the kitchen of a modest home was not a place of luxury, but a place of deep connection to the earth. There are no silver spoons here, no complex machines. There are iron pots, heavy clay jars, and wooden bowls carved by hand. Every object has a story. Every tool has been held for years. As the flames grow higher, licking the bottom of the black iron cauldron, the cook stands for a moment, feeling the warmth spread through their hands. This is the rhythm of survival, a beautiful, simple routine that has sustained humanity for generations. As you listen to the story of this day, let the warmth of that medieval hearth fill your thoughts. Let the heavy weight of your day fade into the background, replaced by the slow, soothing pace of the past. We will walk through the morning mist, smell the fresh bread, and feel the steady comfort of a life lived close to the ground. The channel, Sleepy History with Kevin, is a storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. With the hearth fire now breathing steadily, casting a gentle, protective amber glow across the stone kitchen, the cook picks up 2 heavy wooden buckets. The wood of the buckets is smooth, worn down by years of touch and the continuous embrace of cold water. It is time to leave the warmth of the fireplace for a brief moment and step out into the early morning mist. The wooden door opens with a soft, familiar creak, letting in a wave of crisp, cool air that smells of wet grass, dew, and the sleeping earth. The world outside is painted in shades of deep blue and soft grey. The sun is still a quiet promise hidden behind the eastern hills. Walking down the narrow dirt path toward the village well, the cook's footsteps are light, leaving temporary imprints on the dew-kissed grass. There is no rush in these steps. In the medieval world, every drop of water requires physical effort, and this effort creates a profound respect for the resources given by nature. At the well, the world feels completely still. The bucket is lowered into the dark depth, and a soft, hollow splash echoes from below, a soothing sound that signals the beginning of life-giving preparation. As the rope is pulled up, hand over hand, the water emerges clear, pure and freezing cold, reflecting the very first faint light of dawn. Carrying the full buckets back to the kitchen requires balance and a slow, rhythmic gait. Each step is synchronized with the gentle sloshing of the water against the wooden staves. Back inside the kitchen, the atmosphere is noticeably warmer now. The water is poured into the large black iron cauldron hanging directly over the fire. Soon, small bubbles will begin to form at the bottom, singing a quiet song of heat and transformation. Now, the preparation of the morning sustenance begins. For a poor household, food is not about abundance, but about nourishment and care. The cook reaches into a woven wicker basket to gather the ingredients for the morning pottage. There are no exotic spices or rare delicacies on the table. Instead, there are humble grounding ingredients, a few wrinkled onions, some earth-covered carrots, a handful of dried peas, and a small sack of coarse oats. With a simple iron knife, the cook begins to prepare the vegetables. The sound of the knife slicing through the crisp onions and carrots is rhythmic and steady. The earthy fragrance of the chopped vegetables mingles with the rising steam from the heating cauldron. Every slice is done with patience, recognizing that these simple gifts of the soil are what keep the family strong and sustained through the long hours of daylight. The water in the great iron cauldron has now reached a gentle boil. Small silver bubbles rise and break upon the surface, releasing a thick, clean curtain of steam that rises toward the dark wooden rafters. The cook slowly adds the chopped vegetables and the coarse oats into the bubbling water. This is the beginning of the pottage, the emotional and physical heart of every ordinary medieval meal. It is a dish that changes with the seasons, never exactly the same, yet always deeply comforting and familiar. With a long, heavy spoon carved from a single piece of ash wood, the cook begins to stir. The movement is slow and circular, a steady hypnotic rhythm that coaxes the starch from the grain, thickening the water into a rich, nourishing broth. The sound of the wooden spoon sliding against the curved interior of the iron pot is low and soothing, like a gentle heartbeat in the quiet kitchen. To add depth and life to the simple mixture, the cook reaches for a small bundle of dried herbs gathered during the warm days of late summer. Among the dried leaves are thyme, rosemary, and a little wild parsley, preserved with care for these exact moments. As the dry leaves are crushed between the cook's palms, they release an aromatic oil, filling the room with a warm, comforting fragrance that speaks of sun-drenched fields and green hillsides. The crushed herbs cascade into the pot, floating like tiny green stars before being pulled into the swirling, thickening broth. The scent is rich and grounding, a reminder that even the simplest ingredients can bring warmth to a cold morning. Managing the hearth fire during this long, slow cooking process is an art of patience. A medieval cook does not have knobs or switches to alter the temperature. Instead, they must understand the language of wood and ash. To keep the pottage from burning at the bottom, the cook gently pushes two large split logs slightly apart using an iron poker, reducing the intensity of the flames. The bright, snapping fire subsides into a steady, pulsing bed of red embers. This low, indirect heat is exactly what the pottage needs to simmer properly for hours. The sound changes from a loud, energetic boiling to a soft, rhythmic plop-plop as the soup thickens. The smoke from the hearth rises gracefully, guided by the stone chimney, leaving behind only the pleasant, clean scent of burning oak. In this quiet space, as the morning light begins to softly tint the small window panes, the kitchen becomes a sanctuary of peace, where time moves as slowly as the bubbling pot. While the pottage continues its slow, rhythmic simmer over the glowing embers, the cook turns toward a large, shallow wooden trough dedicated to the daily bread. For a modest household, bread is not just an accompaniment, it is the very foundation of existence. The cook pours a measure of coarse, stone-ground rye flour into the trough, creating a small mound that looks like a miniature hill of grey sand. A hollow is formed in the centre, and warm water from the edge of the hearth is gently poured in. The mixing begins with bare hands. The sensation is grounding and immediate. At first, the flour and water are separate, but through steady circular movements, they begin to bond. The sound of wet flour turning into dough is soft and squelch-like, a deeply satisfying auditory texture that marks the birth of something sustaining. The cook works the dough with a calm intensity, pressing down with the heels of their hands, folding it over, and stretching it out again. This repetitive action becomes a form of meditation in the quiet morning air. Every push and fold develops the heavy dough, transforming it into a smooth, elastic mass. The kitchen smells strongly now of yeast, sour fermentation, and the clean, nutty aroma of grain. Once the dough feels right, heavy, alive and warm from the friction of labour, it is shaped into a simple round loaf. Since a poor household rarely has access to a private brick oven, the cook utilises the ancient method of hearth-baking. With a small iron shovel, a space is cleared in the warm corner of the hearth, pushing away the bright embers to reveal the hot stone floor beneath. The round loaf is placed directly onto the stone, and an earthenware pot is inverted over it to create a small self-contained oven. Hot ashes and a few small coals are then raked around and over the pot, sealing the heat inside. There, in the dark, silent warmth of the hearth, the bread will slowly rise and develop a thick, dark crust. As the bread begins its hidden transformation, the first true rays of the morning sun break through the small high window of the kitchen. The light cuts through the rising steam and the thin veil of wood smoke, creating long golden beams that illuminate the dust motes dancing in the air. The kitchen is no longer a place of shadows, it is painted in the warm, bright colours of a new day. The world outside is waking up, but inside this stone room, the ancient comforting rhythm remains unchanged. All stories on this channel, Sleepy History with Kevin, are fictional, thoughtfully crafted around historical themes and inspired by real events, figures and periods, reimagined for engaging storytelling. The content does not represent real individuals, actual events or documented cases. Any resemblance to real people, animals or events is purely coincidental. With the bread baking safely beneath its blanket of warm ash and the pottage singing its low bubbling song, the cook steps outside once more. The sun has now climbed just above the horizon, casting long soft shadows across the small kitchen garden. The air is still sweet and cool, and a gentle mist hangs low over the damp soil. This small plot of land is the cook's treasure, a living green pantry filled with the quiet resilience of nature. Every plant here has a purpose, chosen for its ability to heal, to flavour and to sustain. The leaves of cabbage, leeks and wild garlic are covered in thousands of tiny diamond-like morning dewdrops that catch the morning sun. The cook kneels carefully onto the damp earth, feeling the cool ground beneath. There is no rush, only the careful observation of what is ready to be harvested for the midday meal. A few green leeks are gently pulled from the loose soil, their roots carrying the rich, clean smell of the earth. If you are enjoying this peaceful journey back in time, please take a gentle moment to subscribe to Sleepy History with Kevin. By liking this video and turning on the notification bell, you help ensure that these calm, historical stories can continue to bring comfort and relaxation to your nights. Let us return now to the quiet beauty of our medieval morning. As the cook gathers a small handful of fresh mustard greens and wild thyme, the distant, deep sound of the village church bell begins to ring. The sound travels softly through the cool morning air, rolling over the hills and through the trees like a slow, rhythmic wave. It is the prime bell, signalling to the entire community that the day has truly begun. It is a comforting sound, a shared heartbeat for the village, reminding everyone that they are part of a larger, interconnected world. Inside the garden, the birds have fully awakened, filling the trees with a soft, cheerful chorus that blends perfectly with the distant bell. The cook stands up, holding the fresh greens close, breathing in their sharp, clean scent. Every action in this life is connected directly to the land and the sky. There are no artificial schedules, only the natural progression of light, sound, and the needs of the body. Returning to the kitchen doorway, the cook looks back at the garden one last time, filled with gratitude for the quiet peace that the morning brings. Inside the kitchen, the air has grown thick with the rich, earthy perfume of simmering leeks and the warm, golden scent of roasting rye flour. The sun now streams fully through the small window, drawing a bright square of light upon the stone floor. It is in this quiet window of time, while the food cooks itself under the watchful eye of the hearth, that the cook turns to the maintenance of the kitchen. A clean kitchen is a sanctuary of health and order in a world that can often be unpredictable. The cook picks up a broom made of tightly bound birch twigs. The sound of the dry twigs sweeping across the rough flagstones is rhythmic and soft, a dry, whispering rustle that echoes gently against the stone walls. With each stroke, the remnants of yesterday's ash and the small bits of dry straw are swept away into the corner, leaving the floor clean and clear. There is a deep, simple satisfaction in this act of clearing space, a physical manifestation of bringing order to the home. Next, the cook tends to the wooden tableware. A row of simple shallow bowls carved from beechwood sits on a long shelf, waiting to be wiped down. The cook takes a piece of coarse linen cloth, dipped in warm water from the side cauldron, and gently rubs the interior of each bowl. The friction of the cloth against the wood makes a low, rhythmic sound. Over years of use, these bowls have absorbed the oils of countless stews, giving them a dark, smooth patina that shines softly in the morning light. As each bowl is cleaned, it is stacked carefully on the shelf, next to the heavy earthenware cups. These cups, shaped by a local potter's hands, carry small imperfections, a thumbprint in the clay, a slight unevenness in the glaze, that make them unique and human. The cook handles them with great care, knowing that in a modest household every vessel is valuable and difficult to replace. There is no clatter of porcelain or metal here, only the soft, heavy thud of clay meeting wood. With the shelves organized, the cook sits down for a brief moment on a low wooden stool near the window. The physical labor of the morning is complete, and the body welcomes this short period of rest. Outside, the village is fully awake. The distant sound of cartwheels on dirt roads and the faint chatter of neighbours can be heard. But inside the kitchen, the slow, peaceful ticking of the hearth fire remains the dominant sound, a private world of warmth, routine and quiet preparation. The time has come to reveal the secret transformation taking place beneath the hearth. The kitchen has filled with an unmistakable, deeply comforting aroma, the sweet, rich smell of fully baked rye bread. It is a scent that speaks of safety, comfort, and the simple joy of sustenance. The cook rises from the low stool and approaches the glowing bed of ash with a wooden shovel and a pair of iron tongs. Carefully, with slow, measured movements, the cook begins to brush away the grey, powdery ash gathered around the inverted earthenware pot. The sound of the dry ash being shifted is a soft, sweeping whisper. Using the tongs, the cook gently lifts the hot clay pot. A sudden warm cloud of steam escapes, carrying with it the pure, concentrated essence of baked grain. There, sitting on the dark stone floor, is the round loaf of bread. Its crust has turned a beautiful, deep chestnut brown, dusted with a fine white veil of flour and a few specks of dark ash. The cook uses a dry linen cloth to lift the heavy hot loaf from the hearth and places it onto the wooden table to ensure it is perfectly baked. The cook turns the bread over and gives the bottom a gentle tap with their knuckles. A hollow, clear sound echoes through the quiet room, the definitive sign that the bread is done, cooked through to its very heart by the steady trapped heat of the stone. Before the bread is set aside to cool completely, the cook takes a long iron knife to slice just a small piece from the edge. As the blade cuts through the thick, crunchy crust, it makes a crisp, satisfying crackling sound, followed by the soft, yielding resistance of the tender interior. The inside is dense, dark, and filled with tiny pockets of air, still steaming with the trapped warmth of the fire. The cook holds the warm slice for a moment, letting the heat seep into their fingertips. Taking a small bite, the flavour is deep, earthy, and slightly sour, a taste that has sustained human life for thousands of years. There is no butter or honey needed. The simple combination of grain, water, and fire is completely fulfilling. This first taste is a quiet celebration of successful labour, a moment of deep gratitude before the rest of the household joins the table for the midday meal. The high sun now hangs directly above the cottage, casting a bright, clear light through the open doorway. The quiet hum of the midday village fills the air, and soon the soft sound of familiar footsteps approaches. The family returns from their morning labours in the nearby fields and weaving sheds. Their faces are tired, their hands worn from the day's tasks, but as they step across the stone threshold into the kitchen, the rich, welcoming scent of warm rye and savoury pottage wraps around them like a comforting embrace. They take their places around the long, smooth wooden table, their movements slow and relaxed. The cook takes up the large ashwood spoon and approaches the bubbling cauldron with a steady hand. The cook ladles the thick, steaming pottage into each wooden bowl. The sound of the rich broth splashing gently into the bowls is warm and heavy, a sound that promises strength and restoration for the hours ahead. If you find this gentle journey into the past a peaceful escape from the modern world, please take a soft moment to like this video and subscribe to Sleepy History with Kevin. Leaving a gentle comment below helps our small community grow, allowing us to share more soothing stories of forgotten times with weary souls looking for rest. Thank you for listening. With the bowls filled, the cook places the freshly baked round loaf in the centre of the table. Instead of using a knife, the bread is broken by hand, a traditional gesture of sharing and community that has bonded families for generations. The crust gives way with a soft, resonant crack, revealing the soft, steaming centre. Each person receives a thick, hearty piece to dip into their warm pottage. As they eat, the conversation is low, quiet, and unhurried. They speak of simple things, the growth of the crops, the flight of a bird over the meadow, or the warmth of the afternoon sun. There is no tension here, no modern rush or digital distraction. Every bite is chewed slowly, savoured for the simple energy it provides. The kitchen has fulfilled its highest purpose. It has transformed the raw gifts of the earth into a moment of pure peace, nourishment, and human connection, anchoring the family against the changing winds of the world outside. After the midday meal, the cottage returns to its gentle, solitary silence. The family has stepped back out into the bright afternoon, their voices fading softly into the distance as they return to the open fields. The cook is left alone once more with the quiet hum of the kitchen. The sun has shifted now, casting long, slanted beams of golden light across the wooden table, illuminating the faint lines and rings of the wood. This is the hour of preservation, a time for quiet foresight. In a medieval home, nothing is wasted, and every small ingredient must be protected with utmost care against the passage of time. The cook walks over to a dark, cool corner of the kitchen where several heavy clay jars are stored. These jars hold the dried grains, the peas, and the precious salt that keeps the household sustained through the harsher months of the year. With slow, deliberate movements, the cook unrolls a piece of clean linen cloth containing a small piece of salted pork. To ensure its preservation, the cook takes a handful of coarse white salt crystals and gently rubs them into the surface of the meat. The sound of the salt crystals scraping against the dried meat is low and textured, a dry whisper that promises security for future meals. Once completely coated, the meat is wrapped tightly and returned to its cool earthenware home. Next, the cook gathers the leftover stems of fresh herbs from the morning. Bundling them together with pieces of rough hemp twine, the cook ties them into small, neat bouquets. Standing on a low wooden bench, the cook reaches up to the dark oak beams of the ceiling, hanging the herbs upside down next to the older, dried bundles. As they hang in the gentle updraft of warm air from the hearth, the herbs release a faint, sweet cloud of lavender, sage, and wild thyme into the rafters. Looking up at the rows of hanging herbs and smoked provisions, the cook feels a deep sense of quiet accomplishment. This domestic labour is a quiet conversation with the future. It is the art of gathering the abundance of the warm months and holding it gently, carefully, so that the warmth of the kitchen remains unbroken, no matter how cold the world outside may become. The bright golden light of the afternoon has slowly matured into a deep, warm amber. The shadows in the kitchen are lengthening, stretching across the stone floor like long, quiet fingers reaching for the hearth. The temperature outside begins to drop as the sun dips lower toward the western hills, and the cook knows it is time to prepare the kitchen for the coming darkness. A kitchen without a steady supply of wood is a kitchen that grows cold too quickly. The cook steps out to the side of the cottage, where the winter firewood is neatly stacked beneath a small straw lean-to. Each piece of wood has been split by hand and dried for months under the summer sun. The cook selects several thick logs of oak and a handful of dry birch kindling. The feel of the rough, textured bark against the cook's palms is solid and grounding, a tactile reminder of the forest's strength. Carrying the wood inside, the sound of the logs being stacked softly near the hearth is heavy and rhythmic. If this calm journey through the medieval evening is bringing peace to your mind, please consider subscribing to Sleepy History with Kevin by liking this video and sharing it with those who need a gentle escape. You help us keep the hearth fire burning for this channel. Let us rest our minds now as the twilight gently settles over the kitchen. With the fresh wood safely stored inside, the cook turns back to the central fireplace. The fire from the morning has settled into a deep, glowing bed of red coals, breathing out a steady, dry heat that keeps the entire room comfortable. Using a long iron poker, the cook gently stirs the ashes, waking up the hidden embers. Tiny, bright orange sparks rise gracefully from the ashes, floating upward into the dark chimney like a constellation of temporary stars. A fresh log of oak is placed carefully onto the glowing coals. For a long time nothing happens, and then, with a soft, hollow pop, a small blue flame licks the side of the wood. The flame grows, turning bright yellow as it catches the dry bark, casting a fresh, flickering light across the whitewashed walls. This act of tending the fire is a sacred duty, performed every evening with the same reverence. It ensures that when the family returns from the cold twilight, the heart of the home will be wide awake, warm, and ready to protect them through the night. The twilight has now completely dissolved into the deep, velvet blue of a medieval night. Outside, the village has fallen into a profound silence. The cattle are settled in their barns, and the wind whispers softly through the thatch of the roof. Inside the kitchen, the fresh oak log has settled into a steady, reliable burn, painting the room in deep shades of crimson and gold. The time has come for the final, simplest meal of the day. There is no heavy cooking required tonight. The cook utilizes the beautiful efficiency of the hearth by gently reheating the remainder of the morning's pottage. As the pot warms over the low embers, the sound of the thick broth sighing and bubbling is softer now, a slow, sleepy murmur that matches the quiet energy of the house. The cook slices the remaining portions of the dense rye bread, the knife creating a low scraping sound against the wooden board. The family gathers once more, their movements heavy with a healthy, honest tiredness. They eat almost in complete silence, basking in the radiating warmth of the fireplace. There is a beautiful sanctity in this quietness, a shared understanding that the day's work is done, the bodies are nourished, and the sanctuary of the home is secure. One by one, the wooden bowls are emptied, and the final crumbs of bread are wiped from the table. As the family retires to their straw-filled beds in the adjoining room, the cook remains for a few final moments in the kitchen. The air is peaceful, heavy with the comforting sense of wood smoke, dried lavender, and baked grain. The long day of physical labour is drawing to a beautiful, open-ended close, leaving behind a deep sense of order, contentment, and quiet rest. This content is inspired by and adapted from public domain works available through Project Gutenberg. The material has been transformed through original narration, editing, and storytelling to create a unique experience for educational and entertainment purposes. The dark hours have deepened, wrapping the entire medieval village in a heavy, silent blanket of star-filled sky. Inside the kitchen, the warmth remains, trapped by the thick stone walls and the heavy wooden beams overhead. The cook stands alone in the amber glow, ready to perform the final, most crucial ritual of the night, banking the hearth. This is the ancient art of preserving the fire without letting it burn away into ash before the dawn. With an iron shovel, the cook gently gathers the remaining red, pulsing embers into a tight mound at the centre of the fireplace. The sound of the coals clinking softly against each other is a dry metallic whisper in the dark room. Once the embers are gathered, the cook covers them carefully with a thick layer of grey, powdery ash from the edges of the hearth. This blanket of ash restricts the oxygen, slowing the fire's breath until it becomes a quiet, sleeping pulse. As the blanket of ash settles, the bright orange light gently fades, retreating into a soft, deep crimson glow hidden beneath the grey surface. The long dancing shadows on the walls dissolve into a calm, uniform darkness. The kitchen grows dim, yet the room retains its deep, radiating heat. There is no fear of the dark here. It is a welcoming darkness, a natural signal for the body and the mind to finally let go of the day's burdens. The cook places the iron tools back in their designated corners, their soft clatter marking the definitive end of the day's labour. Standing in the centre of the darkened kitchen, the cook listens to the absolute stillness. The only sound is the faint rhythmic sighing of the wind outside and the gentle slow breathing of the sleeping family in the next room. The air is clear, peaceful, and fragrant with the lingering essence of oak smoke and dried thyme. With a heart at peace and a mind cleared of worry, the cook slowly walks toward their own modest bed. The day was filled with continuous honest work, but it has brought security and comfort to the home. As the cook closes their eyes, the kitchen remains awake in the dark, a silent guardian holding the hidden warmth of the earth, waiting quietly for the first spark of the coming morning. The cook now rests upon a simple mattress filled with fresh, dry straw and wild lavender. Every muscle in the body, worn out by hours of carrying water, kneading dough and tending the heavy iron pots, begins to fully relax into the soft fabric. There is a profound, honest pleasure in this physical tiredness. It is the fatigue of a day well spent, a body that has functioned in perfect harmony with the requirements of survival and care. As the cook's breathing slows down, matching the deep, quiet rhythm of the midnight hours, the mind also begins to drift away from the material world. The worries of tomorrow, whether the flour will last through the month, or if the rain will damp the woodpile, fade into nothingness. In the medieval night, when the candles are extinguished and the hearth is banked, there is nothing more to be done. The world is handed over to the care of nature, and man is permitted to simply exist in a state of pure, uninterrupted rest. Outside the small window, the moon moves gracefully across the velvety sky, casting a soft silvery light over the thatched roofs of the village. The trees in the forest sway gently in the midnight breeze, making a low rustling sound that resembles the distant peaceful murmur of the ocean. It is a world without clocks, without notifications, and without the endless rush of modern life. Time here is vast, deep, and completely unhurried. Inside the dark kitchen, the hidden embers beneath the ash continue to breathe out a soft residual warmth. The clay jars, the wooden bowls, and the iron cauldron rest in the shadows, waiting patiently for their purpose to be renewed. Everything is in its proper place. The home is safe, wrapped in the protective embrace of the quiet night, allowing the cook and the family to journey deep into the healing realm of dreams, undisturbed and fully at peace. Now the night reaches its deepest, most sacred hour. It is the time when even the stars seem to soften their light, blinking quietly in the vast dark tapestry of the medieval sky. The village is completely asleep, suspended in a beautiful moment of absolute stillness. Outside the kitchen window, the midnight mist has thickened, turning into a soft, protective blanket of dew that coats the leaves of the herbs and the rich, dark soil of the garden. Occasionally, a single drop of condensation forms on the thatch of the roof and falls with a tiny, delicate plop onto the stone ground outside. It is a sound so gentle, so rhythmic, that it only emphasizes the profound peace enveloping the world. Inside the stone kitchen, the air remains pleasantly warm, holding on to the comforting scents of roasted barley and dried oak wood. The darkness here is not cold or empty, it is a rich, soft shadow that cradles the tools of honest daily labour. beneath the thick layer of grey ash on the hearth. The hidden embers give off a faint, almost invisible crimson pulse. This tiny, silent heart of the house works through the darkest hours, preserving the energy needed to spark tomorrow's life. The wooden spoons on their shelves, the heavy clay jars in the corner, and the smooth stone floor all rest in the quiet dimness, having fulfilled their purpose for the day that has passed. The cook remains lost in a deep, dreamless sleep in the adjoining room. Their breath is slow and even perfectly synchronized with the quiet sighing of the wind through the trees outside. In this timeless space, there is no past to regret and no future to fear. There is only the continuous healing present, a deep and restorative sanctuary of rest that has protected weary souls for hundreds of years, holding them safely until the dark night slowly decides to welcome the very first dawn. The deep darkness of the midnight hours begins to soften, shifting almost invisibly into a lighter, velvety shade of indigo. The world stands at the very edge of tomorrow, suspended in a beautiful, fragile moment where yesterday is fully gone and the new day has not yet arrived. It is the hour of absolute surrender, where nature breathes in deeply and slowly, preparing for the grand cycle of life to renew itself once more. Through the tiny cracks of the heavy wooden door, a faint, cool draught of early pre-dawn air slips into the kitchen. This cold breath of the night carries the clean, wild scent of faraway damp meadows and sleeping forests. As it enters the room, it gently mingles with the fading warm air that still radiates from the stone hearth. The collision of the cool night and the warm stone creates a soft, unseen movement in the dark, a gentle circulation of air that smells of comfort, time and earth. Deep within the banked fireplace, the sleeping embers remain perfectly insulated beneath their grey blanket of ash. They have done their duty well, maintaining a steady, silent warmth through the coldest hours of the night. The heavy iron cauldron hanging above them stays warm to the touch, a dark silhouette holding the memory of the morning's boiling pottage. Everything in this space remains in a state of suspended animation, safe, dark, and heavy with rest. In the next room, the cook shifts slightly under the rough wool blanket, exhaling a long, peaceful breath before sinking back into the final, deepest layer of sleep. The body is completely weightless now, untethered from the physical demands of wood and water. In this quiet medieval sanctuary, far removed from the loud mechanics of the future, the soul is allowed to simply float, resting in the absolute certainty that when the light finally returns, the hearth will be ready, the water will be pure, and the cycle of care will begin again. The world remains held in a deep, protective stillness, as if time itself has slowed its pace to a gentle crawl. The indigo sky outside the kitchen window is vast and unblemished, a silent witness to the generations of souls who have found comfort in these quiet hours. Inside the stone walls of the cottage, the silence is thick and comforting, a physical presence that wraps around the room and sweetens the air. On the long wooden shelf, the simple tools of the cook's daily life rest in the dark. The ashwood spoon, worn smooth by years of stirring thick broths, sits quietly beside the iron knife and the heavy clay plates. In the daytime, these objects are extensions of the cook's hands, constantly moving, creating and providing, but now they have their own form of sleep. They are stationary, cooled by the night air, waiting without hurry for the touch that will bring them back to life. Near the corner of the room, the large woven wicker baskets hold the remaining root vegetables, undisturbed by the passage of the hours. The smell of the damp earth still clinging to the carrots and onions is faint but grounding, mixing with the sweet fading aroma of the hanging herbs above. There is no urgency in this room, no hidden tension. The kitchen has become a temple of simple utility and profound peace, where every stone and every piece of wood knows its place and its purpose. In the neighbouring room, the family continues their rhythmic, peaceful breathing. Their minds are untroubled, drifting through the soft, quiet landscapes of sleep. The heavy labour of yesterday has been fully washed away by the dark, and their bodies are being rebuilt by the gentle power of rest. The warmth from the hearth continues to radiate outward in slow, invisible waves, a silent embrace that keeps the coldness of the outside world at bay, ensuring that the sanctuary of the home remains complete and unbroken. Outside the thick stone walls, a gentle night wind brushes against the edges of the cottage. It moves softly through the dry straw of the thatched roof, creating a low, rhythmic rustling sound that functions like a natural lullaby. The wind carries the cool, fresh memory of the distant hills, whispering secrets to the dark trees in the garden, but it cannot penetrate the sturdy sanctuary that the cook called home. Inside, the air remains completely still, warm and heavy with the fragrance of old oak wood and dried sage. This heavy stone building has stood for decades, protecting generations of hard-working hands from the changing moods of the seasons. Tonight it acts as a silent guardian, holding the warmth of the day inside its walls and keeping the cold mist of the pre-dawn hours at bay. The cook, resting deeply on the straw mattress, hears the faint murmur of the wind as if it were a faraway dream, a gentle reminder that they are safe, insulated, and completely protected from the vast, dark world outside. The kitchen continues its slow, nightly rest in the dimness. The black iron cauldron, hanging perfectly still over the ash-covered hearth, holds the faint residual heat of the fire. On the table, the wooden cutting board bears the deep lines of long use, resting under the soft, silvery light of the late moon. There is a beautiful sacred order in this stillness, where every object has performed its duty and now enjoys a period of well-deserved quietude. As the night wind slowly subsides, leaving behind an even deeper silence, the house seems to settle further into the dark earth. The breathing of the family in the next room remains slow, steady, and unhurried, a natural rhythm that mimics the calm pulsing of the planet itself. The mind of the listener is invited to merge with this timeless peace, letting go of the heavy weights of the modern world and drifting effortlessly within the warm, safe, and ancient embrace of this medieval night. In the complete darkness of the third hour, the kitchen reveals its sensory soul through the quiet alchemy of scent. Without the light to guide the eyes, the air becomes a rich, comforting tapestry of aromas, each layer telling a story of honest labour and natural gifts. The dominant note is the deep, smoky sweetness of the spent oak logs, a lingering warmth that has soaked into the very mortar of the stone walls over decades of daily fires. Mingling with the wood smoke is the clean, earthy fragrance of the dry straw mattress from the sleeping quarters, breathing out a scent that speaks of sun-warmed fields and summer harvests. Above, from the dark wooden rafters, the hanging bundles of dried lavender and rosemary slowly release their essential oils into the rising warmth of the room. It is a slow, continuous exhale of herbal sweetness, a natural remedy designed by the earth to quiet the active mind and soothe the tired body. Closer to the ground, the faint, sharp scent of the stored leeks and wild garlic in the wicker baskets adds a grounding, practical note to the air. It is the smell of sustenance, a reminder of the nourishing pottage that has kept the family strong. These scents do not compete. Instead, they blend into a single, beautifully complex fragrance of safety, comfort, and home. It is an olfactory language that every human soul across the centuries understands intuitively. The cook moves slightly in their sleep, drawing in a long, deep breath of this aromatic sanctuary. The fragrance acts as a gentle anchor, locking the subconscious mind into a state of absolute security. In this dark, fragrant room, there are no artificial elements, no chemical inputs, only the pure raw components of the earth, wood, and air. The mind of the listener is invited to breathe in this historical peace, letting the warm, scented air of the medieval kitchen wash away the stress of the modern day. The hands of the unseen clock of the universe move with an infinite, beautiful slowness, steering the medieval world through the final, heaviest chapters of the night. This is the hour where time itself seems to lose its forward momentum, stretching out into a long, vast ocean of absolute tranquility. There is no tomorrow yet, and yesterday has been completely forgotten, dissolved into the rich dark shadows that hold the cottage in a silent, warm embrace. Inside the kitchen, the air has reached a perfect, undisturbed equilibrium, suspended in a state of holy rest that has remained unchanged for hundreds of years. Let your mind drift entirely within this expansive stillness. Feel the heavy, dense weight of the stone walls surrounding the room. These stones, gathered from the local riverbed and laid down with care by ancestral hands, do not change with the passing hours. They remain solid, cold on the outside against the morning dew, but radiating a soft, gentle warmth on the inside, holding the thermal memory of the oak fire that burned so brightly during the day. The architecture itself functions as a living, breathing lung, keeping the cold mist of the outer world from disturbing the sacred peace of the interior. In the deep centre of the room, the hearth remains the emotional and physical anchor of the home. Beneath the thick protective blanket of pale grey ash, the hidden embers continue their silent private existence. They do not snap, they do not crackle, and they do not throw bright sparks into the darkness anymore. Instead, they exist as a single concentrated pulse of deep crimson heat, breathing out a steady invisible warmth that rises slowly toward the dark wooden ceiling. This heat moves in a slow circular pattern, lifting the scent of the dried herbs from the rafters and gently carrying it down again, creating a continuous comforting cycle of fragrant air. If you listen with absolute attention to the darkness, you can hear the tiny microscopic symphony of the house at rest. It is the faint, dry settling of the straw mattress in the next room as the cook turns slowly in a deep dream. It is the slow, rhythmic expand and contract of the ancient oak beams overhead, reacting to the subtle shift in temperature as the pre-dawn air kisses the exterior thatch of the roof. It is the soft, almost imperceptible sigh of the wind as it rolls over the chimney opening, creating a low, acoustic drone that acts as a natural white noise, calming the nervous system and inviting the spirit to sink deeper into the realm of sleep. Every object within this kitchen is participating in this grand, silent rest. On the long wooden table, the heavy iron knife and the wooden trenchers sit perfectly still, their surfaces absorbing the soft ambient warmth of the room. The large clay water jars, filled with the clear cold water gathered from the village well the morning before, stand like quiet sentinels in the shadows. The water inside them is perfectly flat, a dark, flawless mirror reflecting the absolute absence of motion. There is no rush to begin the labour of the day, no anxiety about the tasks that wait ahead. Everything is waiting, resting and preparing in the most beautiful, unhurried way possible. The cook's breathing remains the central rhythm of the house. It is a slow, steady tide, an inhale that draws in the clean herbal sweetness of the kitchen, and an exhale that releases any remaining tension from the physical body. The legs, the arms, the hands that worked so hard to knead the heavy rye dough and carry the heavy wooden buckets are now completely weightless, sinking into the supportive embrace of the straw. In this timeless medieval night, you are invited to share this weightlessness, to let your thoughts become as soft and quiet as the ash on the hearth, drifting effortlessly within the ancient, secure sanctuary of this forgotten kitchen. Outside the heavy oak door of the cottage, the world has entered the quietest, most mysterious phase of the pre-dawn hours. A thick, heavy blanket of blue-grey mist has rolled down from the surrounding forested hills, settling softly over the entire valley, the narrow dirt paths, and the small kitchen garden. This mist is cold, damp, and completely silent, moving like a slow, ghostly river that wraps around every blade of grass, every wooden fence, and every stone of the cottage walls. The leaves of the leeks and the wild garlic in the garden are now heavily weighted down by millions of microscopic water droplets, silver and cold, waiting in the absolute stillness for the very first touch of morning light. Through the tiny, thick glass pane of the high kitchen window, this outer world appears as a soft, blurry canvas of deep blues and dark greys. The trees in the distance look like silent, motionless giants standing guard over the sleeping village. There is no movement anywhere. The birds have not yet made a single sound. The farm animals remain tightly huddled together in the warm straw of their dark barns, and the wind has completely died away, leaving behind a vast, expansive vacuum of pure serenity. It is a moment of total suspension, a temporary pause in the grand machinery of nature, where the earth takes its deepest, longest rest before the cycle of daylight begins anew. Inside the kitchen, this outer coldness is met by the steady, unyielding resistance of the stone walls and the lingering dry warmth of the banked hearth. The contrast is beautiful and profoundly comforting. While the mist outside freezes the surface of the earth, the interior of the cottage remains a safe, insulated womb of absolute security. The air inside is dry, warm and rich with the heavy sweet perfume of yesterday's baked rye bread, the sharp tang of dried sage and the deep grounding smell of the oak wood ashes. The cook, buried deep beneath a thick layer of coarse wool blankets in the next room, is entirely unaware of the freezing fog outside, protected by the structural wisdom of a house built to withstand the harshest elements. Let your awareness expand into this dual world of cold mist and warm stone. Feel the absolute safety of being enclosed within a space that has been prepared with care and foresight. On the long wooden table, a thin layer of moisture from the humid air settles gently on the surface of the wooden bowls, giving them a soft, dark sheen in the dimness. The black iron cauldron hanging over the hearth is perfectly cold on its upper rim, but its heavy base, suspended just inches above the ash-blanketed embers, remains warm, holding onto the thermal energy like a loyal servant. Every element in the room is in a state of perfect patience, performing its silent duty to maintain the comfort of the home. If you look closely at the hearth in this quiet hour, you can see the faint, almost imperceptible movement of the rising warm air. It creates a tiny, invisible thermal current that gently flows upward toward the dark, soot-stained rafters, causing the hanging bundles of dried lavender and thyme to sway by a mere fraction of an inch. This micro-movement is the only active thing in the entire house, a soft, silent breath of energy that continuously circulates the healing scents of the herbs through the dark. It is a slow, hypnotic dance of temperature and fragrance, a natural process that purifies the air and fills the room with an overwhelming sense of domestic peace. The mind of the listener is invited to sink completely into this state of non-action. There are no tasks to perform, no schedules to meet, and no expectations to fulfill in this medieval sanctuary. Like the heavy clay jars standing in the dark corner, your only purpose right now is to simply be, to rest heavily and securely within the protective shadows of history. The slow, deep rise and fall of the cook's breath in the adjoining room serves as the master clock for this space, a steady, soothing anchor that coordinates the silence and ensures that your sleep remains deep, restorative, and entirely undisturbed by the cold, misty world outside. The deep blue of the pre-dawn sky begins to stretch and thin, expanding into a vast, silent dome of darkest sapphire. It is a wholly hidden hour, the time that belongs neither to the night nor to the day, but exists as a quiet bridge between the two. In this specific pocket of time, the medieval world achieves its absolute maximum weight of stillness. The birds in the high forest canopy remain perfectly motionless, their heads tucked beneath their wings, sensing the transition of the earth but waiting for the definitive sign of light. The small cottage sits rooted in the damp earth, its stone foundation holding centuries of memory, entirely enveloped in an ancient peace that flows over the hills like a silent river. Inside the kitchen the heavy shadows have softened, losing their hard edges in the deep sapphire twilight that gently filters through the small window. The atmosphere in the room is thick with a heavy, soothing weight, a physical sensation of comfort that presses down gently upon the eyelids and commands the mind to completely surrender. There is absolutely nothing left to think about, no modern anxieties to carry, and no digital echoes to disrupt the sacred density of this historical rest. Every molecule of air inside this stone sanctuary has been purified by the slow-burning oak embers and sweetened by the continuous exhale of the wild lavender hanging from the dark rafters. Look deeply into the dimness of the room and observe the beautiful, unhurried patience of the physical world. The long ashwood table, smooth and worn from generations of rolling bread and sorting grains, catches a faint metallic glint from the high window. It sits in perfect equilibrium, a steady wooden anchor in the centre of the kitchen beside it. The empty wooden stools stand in silence, their simple shapes emerging from the shadows like old friends waiting for the morning routine. There is no rush to fill these seats, no pressure to ignite the fire, and no anticipation of the long day of harvesting and baking that will eventually come. Right now, the only duty of the room is to maintain the architecture of pure, unadulterated sleep. Beneath the heavy protective blanket of pale grey ash on the stone hearth, the hidden embers have reached the very end of their nightly journey. They are small now, tightly gathered into a secret, concentrated core of deep crimson energy. They do not emit any light into the room, keeping their warmth entirely inside the stone bed, waiting with infinite patience for the cook's wooden shovel to uncover them at the true dawn. This silent subterranean fire is a beautiful metaphor for the human spirit at rest, holding on to its vital essence, completely protected from the cold, and gathering strength in the dark hours so that it may rise with renewed life when the sun finally breaks over the horizon. In the small sleeping alcove, the cook's body has fully integrated with the rhythm of the house. The deep, heavy rise and fall of their chest is the only clock that matters, a slow and majestic tide that measures the passing of the hours, not in minutes, but in pure restful existence. The hands that were rough with flour and stained with berry juices are now completely open, resting loosely on the thick wool blanket. The mind of the cook is drifting through a soft, timeless fog, completely untethered from the world of weights, measures, and demands. It is the absolute pinnacle of human restoration, a state of being where the soul is fully cradled by the earth and protected by the sturdy stone walls of the home. The listener is invited to step fully into this sapphire twilight, to let your breathing match the slow, steady tide of the sleeping cook. Allow your thoughts to become as still as the water inside the heavy clay jars, perfectly flat and undisturbed by any passing wind. Let the heavy, comforting scent of the ancient oak wood smoke and the dry, sweet straw wash over your senses, grounding you in a time when life was measured by the movement of the sun and the needs of the hearth. There is no past to correct, and there is no future to prepare for in this room. There is only this endless, beautiful moment of absolute safety, holding you softly in the dark and inviting you to sink deeper and deeper into the ultimate sanctuary of rest. The vast velvet blanket of the sapphire night now begins its final, most delicate transformation. Across the eastern horizon, far beyond the sleeping ridges of the ancient forests, the first invisible breath of dawn stirs the air. The colour of the sky shifts with an agonizing, beautiful slowness, melting from the deep, heavy indigo of midnight into a pale, translucent shade of silver grey. It is not yet daylight. It is merely the memory of light, a gentle whisper that tells the earth the darkness has completed its sacred work. The heavy mist that enclosed the cottage garden all night begins to stir, its thick curls losing their dense blue weight and turning into soft floating ribbons of white silk that drift lazily through the dark branches of the apple trees. Inside the medieval kitchen, this transition is marked by a subtle, magical change in the quality of the shadows. The deep, impenetrable blackness in the corners of the room dissolves into a soft, uniform twilight. The contours of every object, the rounded bellies of the clay jars, the sharp profile of the iron crane over the hearth, the long, straight edge of the wooden table become gently visible, outlined in the cool, silver light filtering through the small window pane. This light does not bring the rush or noise of the waking world. Instead, it arrives with a profound, majestic silence that seems to double the stillness of the room, freezing time in one last, eternal moment of absolute peace. Let your mind drift within this grey-silver silence. Feel the beautiful suspension of a world that is fully rested, but not yet awake. On the stone floor, the long path of light reveals the fine silver dust of the hearth ash, resting perfectly still where it fell the evening before. The large oak table sits in the center of the space like a grand sleeping beast, its heavy legs rooted firmly into the earth, its smooth surface holding the cold freshness of the morning air. There is no sound from the village outside. No roosters have crowed, no doors have creaked open, and no footsteps have disturbed the damp dirt paths. The entire valley is holding its breath, savouring the absolute purity of these final moments of total non-action. If you look toward the hearth, you can see that the pale grey blanket of ash has done its job perfectly. Not a single spark escapes into the room, yet the air directly above the stone fireplace remains thick, dry, and warm. This residual heat, cultivated through the long hours of the dark, acts as a gentle shield against the cool pre-dawn air entering through the window. It is a perfect, silent balance of elements, the cold silver light of the sky meeting the warm crimson heart of the earth inside the stone walls. This ancient architecture has performed this ritual for generations, creating a space where the human body can rest without defense, fully insulated from the harshness of the turning seasons. In the adjoining room, the cook remains deeply embedded in the soft, fragrant straw of the mattress. The shift from night to pre-dawn has not broken the spell of their sleep. Rather, it has made their breathing even slower, more rhythmic, and more profound. The body has completely forgotten the heavy weights of the water buckets and the burning heat of the noon fire. The mind is a clear, empty sky floating effortlessly above the physical world. In this state of pure being there is no sense of time, no urgency to begin the day's labour, and no memory of sorrow. It is the deep healing rest of the earth itself, shared generously with those who live in harmony with its natural cycles. The listener is invited to claim this final silver stillness for themselves. Let your thoughts become as light and floating as the mist outside the window, dissolving into the cool, silent air of the morning. Allow your muscles to mimic the heavy, unmoving stability of the cottage walls, fully supported, entirely safe, and wrapped in the protective heritage of this medieval sanctuary. There is nothing you need to accomplish, nothing you need to prepare for, and nowhere else you need to be. The kitchen is still resting, the fire is still sleeping beneath the ash, and the world is giving you permission to sink down, further and deeper, into the soft, eternal embrace of this beautiful healing night. The pale silver twilight of the pre-dawn hour expands with an exquisite, almost imperceptible grace, gently washing over the vast landscape of the medieval valley. The sky has now transitioned into a soft, luminous hue of pearl grey, a clean and quiet canvas that signals the very end of the night's reign. Outside the sturdy stone walls of the cottage, the heavy blue mist that filled the garden for hours begins to thin out, its dense layers dissolving slowly into tiny, delicate droplets of morning dew. These silver beads of water cling to the dark ivy crawling up the stone chimney and form perfect glistening circles on the small glass pane of the kitchen window, blurring the outer world into a soft, impressionistic painting of quiet, unmoving nature. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the air remains perfectly still, holding on to the rich, deep warmth that has been carefully cultivated throughout the long, dark hours. The ambient temperature has reached a wonderful, comforting density, thick with the grounding sense of ancient oak wood ash, the sweet, earthy aroma of dry rye straw, and the faint, relaxing essence of the lavender bundles hanging motionless from the soot-darkened rafters. The long, dancing shadows of the night have completely vanished, replaced by a uniform, peaceful clarity that reveals the honest texture of the home. Every stone in the floor, every groove in the wooden table, and every curve of the earthenware jars stands in plain, quiet view, resting in a state of absolute, unhurried perfection. Let your consciousness sink deeper into this pearl-grey stillness, absorbing the immense safety and stability that fills this ancient room. Look at the long wooden cutting board resting on the table. It sits exactly where the cook left it, untouched by the frantic pace of modern time, a simple monument to useful, honest labour. The heavy iron cauldron hangs from its crane over the hearth, suspended in perfect equilibrium, its dark surface absorbing the cool silver light from the window while its base still hovers over the warm protective bed of ash. There is no anticipation of fire, no sound of water beginning to boil, and no hurry to disturb the sacred rest that has settled over the household. The world is giving everything within these walls permission to simply exist in a state of pure, uninterrupted non-action. If you listen closely to the deep silence of this hour, you can feel the profound weight of human rest that fills the cottage. In the sleeping alcove, the cook and the family are locked within the deepest, most restorative cycle of sleep, the heavy, dreamless slumber that occurs just before the world wakes up. Their breathing is a slow, magnificent symphony of long, even inhalations and soft sighing exhalations that sync perfectly with the natural expansion and contraction of the house itself. The heavy physical labour of yesterday has been completely processed and cleared from their muscles, leaving their bodies completely weightless, completely untethered from the demands of the material world, and deeply anchored in the healing embrace of the earth. Beneath the pale grey blanket of ash on the hearth, the secret crimson embers remain small and quiet, holding on to the vital spark of life with a beautiful, patient stubbornness. They do not seek to burn, they do not seek to illuminate, they simply wait in the dark, preserving their energy until the exact moment they are needed. This is the ultimate hour of surrender for the listener as well, a time to let your mind become as quiet and still as those insulated embers, knowing that you are completely safe, entirely protected, and deeply cared for by the physical world around you. There are no problems to solve in this pearl grey light, no digital notifications to break the spell, and no expectations to meet. Allow your spirit to dissolve into the gentle silver atmosphere of this medieval morning. Feel the heavy supportive weight of your bed underneath you, just as the cook feels the solid comfort of the straw mattress. Let the clean, cool scent of the morning dew, mixing with the warm wood smoke, wash over your senses, clearing away the residual static of the modern day and replacing it with a vast open ocean of tranquility. The night has done its work, the house has kept its promise of protection, and you are invited to drift away entirely, sinking down into the softest, deepest layers of peaceful, rejuvenating sleep, wrapped forever in the quiet, timeless soul of this beautiful sanctuary. The pearl-grey canvas of the pre-dawn sky now experiences the most subtle, delicate shift in its ancient colour palette. Along the very lowest edge of the eastern horizon, beneath the dark, jagged silhouettes of the ancient oak forest, a faint, almost invisible ribbon of soft rose and pale gold begins to breathe into the silver light. It is not yet the sun, it is the gentle herald of the morning, a warm whisper of colour that gently kisses the underbelly of the high, slow-moving clouds outside the cottage. The natural world begins to stir in the most microscopic, unhurried ways. A single sparrow inside its woven nest beneath the thatch shifts its small weight, rustling a dry blade of grass. A heavy drop of silver dew, accumulated over hours on an apple leaf, grows too heavy and slides slowly off the edge, falling with a tiny musical patter into the soft, dark soil below. Inside the stone kitchen, this grand transition remains quiet, respectful, and deeply peaceful. The pale pink light from the eastern sky filters through the small glass window, casting a warm mother-of-pearl glow across the whitewashed stone walls. The heavy, dark shadows that have guarded the room all night are now fully awake, transforming into soft, translucent veils of lavender and grey. The air inside continues to hold its beautiful, protective density, perfectly warm, dry, and rich, with the timeless, comforting fragrances of old oak wood ash, dry barley husks, and the deeply relaxing medicinal sweetness of the dried thyme and mint hanging from the dark wooden ceiling beams. The house is no longer in absolute darkness, yet it remains fully wrapped in the sacred mantle of total, undisturbed quietude. Let your mind float within this beautiful borderland between the night and the day. There is absolutely no rush to wake up, no modern alarm to shock the nervous system, and no digital urgency waiting to tear the spirit away from its rest. In the medieval world, the transition into morning is as slow and natural as the growth of a tree. On the long ashwood table, the soft rose light touches the smooth rims of the empty wooden trenchers and the dark handle of the iron knife, making them glow with a soft, historical dignity. The heavy clay water jars stand in their quiet corner, the surface of the well water inside them perfectly flat, clear, and cold, acting as a silent mirror to the changing sky outside. Everything is in its proper place, performing its silent duty of waiting. If you look toward the hearth, the pale grey blanket of ash appears almost luminous in the early morning light, deep, deep beneath that protective layer. The secret core of crimson embers continues to pulse with a low, dying warmth. It has given away most of its energy to keep the room insulated through the freezing night mist, and now it rests in its final, weakest state, waiting patiently for the cook's hands to breathe new life into its fading body. This quiet hearth is a testament to the beautiful, efficient design of traditional life, a system where nothing is wasted, everything has a purpose, and even the dying embers are treated with respect and care, knowing they carry the seed of tomorrow's nourishment. In the next room, the cook's body begins to subconsciously register the subtle warming of the light. Their deep sleep does not break. Instead, it becomes lighter, softer, and more fluid, like a boat gently drifting toward the shore of consciousness. The heavy rhythmic rise and fall of their chest remains slow and steady, a comforting anchor that fills the cottage with the sound of human peace. The tired muscles that carried water and chopped wood yesterday have been completely restored by the long hours of dark sanctuary. The mind of the cook is completely clear, untroubled by the past and unburdened by the future, resting in the absolute certainty that the earth will provide exactly what is needed for the day ahead. Allow your own spirit to rest on this gentle boundary of the morning. Feel the immense weight of security that comes from knowing you are completely protected within this stone cottage, insulated from the cold, turning world outside. Let the soft pink and silver light of the pre-dawn wash over your thoughts, smoothing away any remaining sharp edges of stress or anxiety. Breathe in the warm, clean air of the historical kitchen, letting the grounding scents of wood smoke and dried herbs settle your mind into a state of deep, unshakable tranquility. The day will come in its own proper time, but right now the world is granting you a final, beautiful pocket of absolute peace, inviting you to simply be, to rest, and to drift within the timeless soul of this ancient sanctuary. The fragile ribbon of rose and gold along the eastern horizon slowly expands, deepening into a rich, warm amber that gently amber coats the tops of the ancient oak forest. The long, patient night has finally reached its beautiful conclusion, handing the medieval world over to the first genuine rays of the morning sun. Outside the cottage, the thick pre-dawn mist does not disappear instantly. Instead, it glows from within, turning into a soft golden fog that floats lazily over the damp soil of the kitchen garden and the small thatch roofs of the sleeping village. The birds inside the ivy-covered stone chimney begin to utter their very first, hesitant notes, soft, clear chirps that sound like a gentle waking prayer, echoing through the vast, quiet valley with a profound sense of peace and renewal. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the first direct beam of sunlight pierces through the small glass window pane, cutting a sharp, luminous path through the cool, dim air of the room. This golden beam is filled with millions of microscopic dust motes, dancing in a slow, weightless ballet above the long wooden table. The light touches the smooth ashwood surface, revealing every rich grain, every soft dent from years of honest use, and warming the cold wood with a gentle golden skin. The dark veils of lavender and grey shadows that guarded the corners all night retreat softly, allowing the clean white texture of the lime-washed stone walls to emerge into the fresh morning clarity. The kitchen is fully illuminated now, yet it retains every ounce of its deep, protective silence. Let your awareness drift entirely within this golden morning light. Feel the immense warmth and comfort of a space that has survived the cold, dark hours without losing its vital energy. The light travels slowly across the room, illuminating the heavy clay water jars standing like old friends in the corner, their surfaces catching a bright amber glint. The black iron cauldron hanging over the hearth is now fully visible, its dark, solid form representing the unchanging stability of the home. There is no frantic rush to begin the day, no loud alarms, and no modern schedules pressing down upon the spirit. Every object in the room remains in a state of perfect, unhurried patience, basking in the beauty of a new beginning. Beneath the luminous blanket of pale grey ash on the hearth, the secret core of crimson embers gives off its very last silent breath of heat. It has performed its duty perfectly, keeping the stone kitchen warm and insulated through the freezing night mist. In the adjoining room, the cook shifts slowly under the coarse wool blanket, drawing in a long, deep breath of the warm morning air, which is now rich with the fragrance of sun-warmed lavender, dried sage, and the sweet, comforting memory of oak wood smoke. The body of the cook is fully restored, light and free from tension, preparing to wake up not with anxiety, but with a peaceful, grounding sense of purpose, ready to uncover the embers and begin the beautiful cycle of care once more. You are invited to rest deeply within this final golden transition. Allow your mind to become as clear and bright as the morning sky, fully illuminated by peace, safety, and comfort. Let the soft, distant sound of the morning birds and the warm scent of the historical kitchen wash away the final remnants of any modern worries, grounding you completely in the timeless rhythm of the earth. The night has passed, the house has kept you safe, and a beautiful, gentle day is waiting just beyond the door. Close your eyes one last time. Let your breath sink with the slow, majestic heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary, and sink down into the softest, most beautiful layer of peaceful, rejuvenating sleep. The golden light of the new morning is no longer a fragile whisper. It has become a steady, warm river of amber and gold that floods across the medieval valley. The sun lifts itself fully above the dense canopy of the ancient forest, casting long horizontal spears of light that pierce through the remaining fragments of the silver morning mist. Outside the cottage, the world is gently waking up, following a timeless choreographical routine that has repeated for 1,000 years. Far away, across the damp meadows, the soft, distant crowing of a village rooster echoes through the quiet air, a clear and comforting sound that signals the definitive return of life. The dew on the garden herbs begins to warm, releasing a sharp, clean fragrance of damp earth, fresh mint, and sweet rosemary into the cooling breeze. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the main beam of sunlight moves slowly across the smooth stone floor, travelling like a golden hand until it reaches the very edge of the stone hearth. It climbs up the side of the fireplace and rests directly upon the pale grey blanket of ash. Under the touch of the sun, the cold ash seems to glisten, revealing the fine, powdery texture of the spent oak logs. Deep beneath this glowing surface, the sleeping embers receive the light, their deep crimson core giving off one final, invisible wave of thermal energy before fading away into complete rest. The air directly above the hearth gently shimmers, creating a beautiful visual boundary between the protective warmth of the night and the fresh, crisp energy of the coming day. Let your spirit rest within this beautiful morning clarity. Watch the golden dust motes dance in their eternal slow-motion ballet inside the sunbeam, completely weightless and free from the gravity of human worries. The light now reaches the upper shelves, illuminating the rows of simple clay jars and the polished wooden bowls. Each object catches a warm reflection, casting soft, elongated shadows that stretch across the lime-washed walls. There is a deep, profound beauty in the absolute cleanliness of this space, a cleanliness born of simple utility and honest materials. There are no synthetic elements here, no plastics, no modern clutter, only the pure grounding presence of wood, stone, iron, and clay, all resting together in perfect silent harmony. In the adjoining room, the cook's eyelids flutter gently as the golden light fills the cottage. There is no sudden start, no rush of adrenaline, and no anxiety about the heavy labor that waits ahead. The cook opens their eyes slowly, looking up at the dark wooden beams of the ceiling, listening to the peaceful symphony of the waking world. The body feels completely light, entirely restored by the long, uninterrupted hours of deep straw and lavender sanctuary. The muscles are supple and warm, ready to slide out from beneath the wool blankets, not out of obligation, but out of a deep, natural desire to connect with the day, to feel the cool well water on the face, and to begin the sacred ritual of baking bread for the loved ones. The listener is invited to share this perfect moment of peaceful waking. You do not need to move, you do not need to open your eyes, and you do not need to carry the weight of your modern tasks yet. Allow your mind to absorb the complete safety and stability of this historical kitchen, knowing that just like the cook, you are fully prepared for whatever the future holds. Let the warm, golden light of the medieval dawn fill your thoughts, clearing away any remaining shadows of tiredness or stress, and replacing them with a vast, open landscape of calm assurance. The cycle of the night has completed its beautiful work. The home has kept its promise of perfect protection, and you are permitted to rest in this radiant, timeless peace for as long as your spirit desires. The golden amber light of the new day has now fully claimed the interior of the stone cottage, turning every corner into a warm, bright haven of absolute clarity. The medieval world has completed its slow, majestic rotation through the dark, and now the gentle machinery of daily life begins to turn with an exquisite, unhurried ease. Outside, the village is breathing in the crisp, fresh air of the morning. The dark forest in the distance is painted in brilliant shades of emerald and gold, and the light breeze carries the sweet, damp scent of the dew-covered meadows directly through the gaps of the wooden window frame. It is a world fully awake, yet completely devoid of the chaotic speed and harsh noises of the modern era. Everything moves according to the ancient, respectful laws of nature. Inside the sleeping quarters, the cook finally slides their legs out from beneath the heavy, coarse wool blanket. The bare feet make a soft skin-to-stone contact with the smooth river stones of the floor. The stone is cool, a refreshing contrast to the deep, trapped warmth of the straw mattress, instantly sending a gentle wave of grounding energy up through the body. There is no sudden rush, no frantic scrambling to meet a modern schedule. The cook stands up slowly, stretching the long-rested limbs, feeling the perfect alignment of a body that has been thoroughly repaired and healed by the sacred hours of the night. Every muscle is loose, every joint is fluid, and the mind remains as calm and still as the flat water inside the large clay jars in the corner. With quiet, deliberate movements, the cook steps into the kitchen area. The silence of the room is not broken, but rather enriched by the gentle domestic sounds of the morning routine. The cook's hands, rough from labour but infinitely gentle, reach for the long ashwood shovel resting against the wall. The dry wood makes a faint hollow click as it is lifted. Walking over to the stone hearth, the cook kneels down into the golden sunbeam and gently, slowly begins to push away the top layer of pale grey ash. The movement is rhythmic and soft, a dry, whispering sound as the fine powder is moved aside, revealing the hidden treasure that has survived the long night, the deep, glowing crimson heart of the ancient embers. As the fresh morning air hits the exposed coals, a tiny, fragile wisp of blue wood smoke curls upward from the fireplace. It rises in a straight, elegant line toward the dark rafters, adding a fresh, aromatic layer of oak smoke to the lingering sweetness of the dried lavender and sage. The cook takes a single piece of dry birch bark from the woodpile, holding it close to the glowing ember, and blows gently upon it. The breath of the cook is steady and calm, an exhale of pure life that coaxes a tiny, bright golden flame from the wood. There is no explosion of heat, no sudden roar, just a gentle, crackling whisper as the small flame catches the wood, ready to slowly warm the iron cauldron and begin the sacred task of providing nourishment for the family. Let your mind rest deeply within these small, beautiful rituals of care. Watch the cook move about the sun-drenched room with absolute presence and grace. The wooden spoon is lifted from its shelf, the clay lid of the grain jar is removed with a soft ceramic slide, the cold well water is poured into the iron pot with a clean, musical splashing sound. Each sound is isolated, clear, and profoundly comforting, a testament to a life where every action is a conscious act of devotion to the home. There is an overwhelming sense of safety in this repetition, the knowledge that no matter how the external world changes, the hearth will always be lit, the water will always be pure, and the simple bread will always rise to feed the ones we love. The listener is invited to fully integrate this feeling of domestic sanctuary into their own spirit. You do not need to leave your bed, and you do not need to carry the weights of your daily burdens yet. Allow yourself to simply float within the warm, fragrant atmosphere of this waking medieval kitchen. Let the soft crackle of the new fire and the soothing sounds of the cook's morning routine wash over your thoughts, creating a thick, unbreakable shield of peace around your mind. You are completely safe, entirely protected, and deeply grounded in the timeless heritage of human care. Breathe in the golden light of this beautiful dawn, let your body release its final remnants of sleep, and rest securely in the quiet, eternal assurance of this peaceful sanctuary. The small golden flame inside the stone hearth has now grown into a steady, cheerful fire, licking the dark underbelly of the heavy iron cauldron with a gentle, rhythmic warmth. Outside the cottage, the morning sun has risen higher, transforming the pale amber sky into a bright, clear canvas of translucent gold. From the sturdy stone chimney on the roof, the very first lazy curls of pale blue wood smoke begin to float upward into the crisp morning air. This smoke drifts slowly across the thatch, blending beautifully with the vanishing fragments of the valley mist, carrying the comforting announcement to the entire village that the hearth has survived the night and the daily cycle of nourishment has begun once more. It is a sight that has brought a deep sense of security to human hearts for generations, a silent signal of life, warmth, and continuity. Inside the kitchen, the atmosphere has become alive with the comforting sensory details of the early morning food preparation. The air is warm, dry, and richly fragrant, layered with the deep smell of fresh birch firewood, the sweet aroma of drying grains, and the sharp, clean scent of the outdoor air slipping through the open casement. The cook moves around the large ashwood table with a slow, meditative grace, entirely present in each small task. With a steady hand, the cook lifts a heavy woven basket and pours a measure of coarsely ground barley and rye grains into a wide clay bowl. The sound of the grains hitting the pottery is a soft, dry cascade, a rustic melody that speaks of rich soil, summer sun, and honest harvesting. Next, a wooden bucket filled with fresh, rich milk, still warm from the morning milking in the nearby barn, is brought into the kitchen. As the cook pours the thick white liquid into the warming cauldron, the rich, sweet scent of dairy instantly fills the room, blending with the smoky undertones of the hearth. There is an incredible, profound beauty in the absolute purity of these ingredients. There are no artificial additives, no processed components, and no complex labels. There is only the fundamental chemistry of earth, water, grain, and fire. Every element is designed to sustain, to heal, and to comfort the body, providing a deep and honest vitality that modern food so often forgets. Let your awareness float entirely within this sensory sanctuary of the waking kitchen. Listen to the tiny musical sounds of the morning preparation, the gentle clink of the wooden ladle against the iron rim of the pot, the soft, rhythmic scraping of the wooden spoon as the cook stirs the grains into the warm milk, and the steady, comforting crackle of the wood fire beneath. These are the foundational sounds of human home building, a timeless white noise that has lulled children and weary travellers to sleep for thousands of years. There is no anxiety here about efficiency, no pressure to speed up the process, and no digital distraction to break the spell of absolute mindfulness. The cook works with the patience of someone who knows that good things cannot be rushed, and that the act of feeding the family is a sacred duty that deserves entire devotion. The morning light now fills the room completely, reflecting off the smooth surfaces of the storage jars and highlighting the beautiful soft textures of the hanging herbs above. The room is no longer a dark cave of shadows, but a bright golden workshop of peace and vitality. In the sleeping alcove, the children stir gently beneath their blankets, comforted by the familiar domestic sounds and the nourishing aromas drifting from the kitchen. They do not wake up with a fright. They slide into consciousness with a soft smile, knowing they are entirely safe, deeply loved and fully protected within the solid stone walls of their home. The listener is invited to claim this profound sense of nourishment and security for themselves. Let your thoughts become as soft and fluid as the stirring grains, dissolving into the warm, golden atmosphere of this medieval morning. Allow your body to sink fully into the heavy, supportive comfort of your bed, knowing that the structural wisdom of the world is watching over you, just as the stone cottage watches over the cook's family. Breathe in the rich, sweet aroma of the fresh wood smoke and the warming grain, letting it fill your lungs and soothe your nervous system with an overwhelming sense of domestic peace. You are safe, you are protected, and you are permitted to rest in this timeless sanctuary of human care for as long as you need. The golden sun has now climbed fully above the horizon, shedding its brilliant unclouded light over the entire medieval landscape. The cool, damp air of the pre-dawn hours has completely surrendered to the spreading warmth of the morning, and the valley is filled with the soft collective sounds of a peaceful awakening. Outside the cottage, the morning dew begins to evaporate from the heavy thatch roof, creating a faint, almost invisible mist that rises toward the blue sky like a silent prayer. The birds in the surrounding apple orchard have joined together in a full, gentle chorus, their light melodic songs filling the crisp air with an overwhelming sense of joy, renewal, and simple gratitude for the arrival of a new day. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the new fire has reached its perfect steady maturity. The heavy oak and birch logs crackle softly, releasing a constant, deeply comforting heat that wraps around the room like a thick wool blanket. Atop the hearth, the large iron cauldron is now fully alive with energy. Inside, the rustic mixture of coarsely ground barley, rye, and fresh morning milk has begun to warm to its boiling point. If you listen with absolute stillness, you can hear the beautiful, rhythmic symphony of the cooking food. It is the slow, deep sound of thick bubbles rising to the surface and bursting with a soft, hollow thump, thump. A steady hypnotic cadence that acts as a natural metronome for the quiet morning. As the pottage simmers, a thick white cloud of fragrant steam begins to billow gently from underneath the heavy wooden lid of the cauldron. This steam rises slowly into the paths of the golden sunbeams cutting through the window, creating a magical shimmering atmosphere in the air. The tiny water particles dance and twirl within the light, carrying with them the intense, rich fragrance of toasted grain, sun-baked fields, and the creamy sweetness of the milk. This steam does not cloud the room with humidity. Instead, it softens the light, turning the kitchen into a dreamy golden cave, where the boundaries between the physical world and the realm of peace become beautifully blurred. The cook stands by the hearth, holding the long ashwood ladle, stirring the thick mixture with a slow circular motion that has been practiced by generations of home builders. Each stroke of the spoon is deliberate, unhurried, and full of silent intention. The dry wood of the ladle slides smoothly against the curved iron interior of the pot, creating a soft, rhythmic scraping sound that matches the slow rise and fall of the cook's own breath. There is an incredible, timeless dignity in this act, the simple foundational labour of turning the raw gifts of the earth into life-giving warmth for the family. In this room, there is no conceptual division between work and love. They are the exact same thing, expressed through the quiet movement of a wooden spoon. The rich, warm aroma of the cooking breakfast travels slowly out of the kitchen, drifting through the open doorway into the adjacent sleeping alcove. It is the ultimate sensory invitation to wake up, a gentle fragrance that brings an instant feeling of security and satisfaction to the human mind. The family moves softly beneath their blankets, smelling the sweet wood smoke and the toasted barley, knowing without a doubt that they are provided for, that the coldness of the night has been defeated, and that the new day is starting in the best, most beautiful way possible. They do not need to rush out of bed. They are permitted to lie still for a few more moments, savouring the profound luxury of an untroubled mind and a safe home. The listener is invited to merge entirely with this golden, steaming morning. Allow your consciousness to sink into the slow, steady rhythm of the bubbling cauldron, letting the deep thump-thump of the boiling grains quiet any remaining static in your thoughts. Feel the heavy, supportive security of your surroundings, fully insulated from the chaotic demands of the outside world, just like the family inside this medieval stone cottage. Breathe in the rich, comforting fragrance of the toasted barley and the clean oak smoke, letting it ground your nervous system in a state of absolute unshakable tranquility. You are safe, you are warm, you are deeply nourished, and you are entirely free to rest within the quiet, eternal soul of this beautiful sanctuary. The morning sun has now risen to its full majestic height, transforming the entire valley into a breathtaking expanse of brilliant gold and fresh, clean greens. The last traces of the silver night mist have been completely dissolved by the growing warmth, leaving behind a world that feels completely purified, renewed and overflowing with quiet vitality. Outside the stone cottage, the small kitchen garden is glowing. The dew on the cabbage leaves and the wild herbs shines like tiny diamonds under the clear blue sky. The birds in the orchard have reached the peak of their morning chorus, their clear, sweet melodies weaving through the air and entering the open kitchen window like a natural song of praise for the gift of a new day. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the long journey of the night fire has reached its beautiful, most rewarding purpose. The cook, using a thick, dry woolen cloth to protect their hands, carefully lifts the heavy iron cauldron off the iron crane and places it onto a thick woven straw mat on the centre of the large ashwood table. The sound of the heavy iron meeting the straw is a soft, solid thud, a sound of arrival, completion, and deep satisfaction. The thick pottage inside has stopped its active bubbling, settling into a smooth, steaming golden porridge that fills the entire room with an incredibly rich, comforting fragrance of toasted barley and sun-ripened grains. With slow, meditative movements, the cook reaches for a small, heavy earthenware jar sitting on the top shelf. This jar holds the most precious sweetness of the summer past, pure, unrefined forest honey, gathered from the wild beehives in the high oak woods. As the cook removes the linen cover, the sweet, floral scent of summer wildflowers instantly releases into the warm room, cutting through the heavy wood smoke and creating a beautiful contrast of aromas. The cook dips a small wooden drizzler into the jar, lifting it slowly to let a thick amber ribbon of honey fall in a continuous golden stream into the large wooden bowls filled with hot porridge. Watch this golden stream of honey with absolute stillness of mind. It moves with an incredible natural slowness, twisting and folding upon itself as it hits the hot barley, melting softly into the creamy surface and releasing a fresh wave of rich, sweet steam. The amber light from the window catches the honey, making it glow like liquid sun, a perfect symbol of the earth's generosity and the honest reward for human patience. There is an overwhelming sense of gratitude in this simple act, a deep, unvoiced thank you to the bees, the forest, the sun and the rain that combined their efforts to create this simple, perfect nourishment for the household. The family has now fully emerged from the sleeping quarters, walking with quiet bare feet onto the warm stone floor. They do not speak. There is no need for words in this sacred morning silence. They sit down together on the long wooden stools, their faces illuminated by the golden sunbeams, their hands wrapping around the smooth, warm curves of their individual wooden bowls. As they take their first spoonfuls of the warm, honey-sweetened porridge, a profound sense of peace and satisfaction settles over the entire room. The coldness and vulnerability of the dark night are completely forgotten, replaced by the physical reality of warmth, safety, and deep, honest nourishment. The listener is invited to sit at this timeless table of peace, to let your spirit absorb the absolute completeness of this medieval morning. Feel the deep grounding safety of being fully provided for, fully protected within these solid stone walls and completely aligned with the gentle rhythms of nature. Allow your breath to become slow, long and deep, drawing in the sweet, smoky fragrance of the breakfast and releasing any remaining traces of modern anxiety or hurry. You have survived the night, the world is safe and beautiful, and you are entirely free to rest your mind and body within the warm, golden and eternal embrace of this healing sanctuary. The golden light of the early morning sun now fills every cubic inch of the stone kitchen, creating a vast, luminous sanctuary where time itself seems to move with the slow, majestic pace of a deep river. The entire medieval valley has fully embraced the light, and the gentle sounds of nature at peace drift continuously through the open wooden casement. Inside the cottage, the beautiful ritual of the morning meal is performed not with clatter or conversation, but within a deep, sacred silence that speaks of profound mutual respect and ancient understanding. The family sits closely together on the long ash-wood benches, their bodies completely relaxed, their minds entirely untethered from any form of modern haste or anxiety, fully immersed in the simple divine act of receiving nourishment. Listen with absolute attention to the tiny, isolated symphony of this silent breakfast. It is the soft, organic scrape of a wooden spoon scooping up the thick, honey-dripped barley porridge from the bottom of a hand-carved bowl. It is the faint, dry sound of the wooden bowls being lifted and set down upon the smooth table surface, a rhythmic and comforting cadence that marks the steady progress of the meal. There are no spoken words, no loud exclamations, and no digital distractions to interrupt the purity of the moment. In this historical world, silence during a meal is not a sign of distance, but a profound form of gratitude, a quiet, collective meditation where every individual is fully present, honouring the food, the fire, and the safety of the roof over their heads. Beside the large clay pot of pottage stands a smaller earthenware pitcher filled with a warm infusion of wild chamomile and dried roships gathered from the hedgerows during the late summer. The cook lifts the heavy pitcher with steady, careful hands, pouring the pale amber liquid into simple clay cups. The sound of the herbal tea filling the pottery is a clean, musical trickle that adds a refreshing light note to the warm atmosphere of the room. As the steam rises from the cups, it carries a delicate, soothing fragrance of summer fields and wild blossoms, cutting through the heavy, smoky sweetness of the hearth and filling the senses with an overwhelming feeling of inner calm, clarity, and physical healing. Watch the interaction between the morning light and the rising steam above the table. The brilliant sunbeams catch the warm vapour, turning the space between the family members into a shimmering, golden haze. Within this glowing mist, every movement is slowed down, becoming a beautiful, deliberate gesture of life. A hand reaching for a piece of crusty rye bread moves with absolute grace. A head, tilting slightly to take a sip of the warm tea, looks like a painted masterpiece from a forgotten century. There is an immense, unshakable stability in this picture. The knowledge that this exact scene has occurred for hundreds of years and will continue to occur, a steady anchor of human survival and domestic love that remains completely unaffected by the chaos of the outer world. As the meal nears its completion, a profound wave of physical satisfaction and mental peace settles over the entire cottage. The warm, nutrient-rich porridge fills the stomach, sending a gentle, deep wave of energy through the limbs, while the soothing herbal tea relaxes the throat and settles the spirit. The hard work of the coming day, the gathering of wood, the tending of the garden, the spinning of wool, is not viewed as a burden, but as a natural, beautiful extension of this morning peace. There is no fear of the future, no anxiety about productivity, and no pressure to compete. Everything is in perfect, harmonious balance, fully aligned with the slow, seasonal heartbeat of the earth. The listener is invited to claim this holy, silent breakfast for their own spirit. Allow your consciousness to sit quietly at this wooden table, letting the slow, rhythmic sounds of the meal wash over your thoughts and dissolve any remaining fragments of modern stress. Feel the heavy, supportive security of your own bed, recognizing that you are just as protected, just as warm, and just as cared for as the family within this ancient stone sanctuary. Breathe in the clean, golden morning air, rich with the scents of warm grain, sweet honey, and soothing chamomile, letting it deeply rest your nervous system. You are completely safe, entirely whole, and permitted to drift within the eternal, healing peace of this beautiful medieval dawn. The bright golden light of the fully risen sun now pours into the stone kitchen in broad, magnificent sheets of amber radiance, signalling the gentle conclusion of the morning meal. The medieval world outside has entered a state of perfect, harmonious motion, yet inside these sturdy stone walls the atmosphere remains entirely suspended in a deep, meditative tranquility. There is no frantic rush to clear the table, no clattering of dishes, and no modern anxiety about the next task on a schedule. The family members rise from the ashwood benches with slow, deliberate movements, each individual instinctively respecting the sacred silence that has guarded their sleep and nourished their morning. They move like gentle shadows through the golden sunbeams, fully grounded in the peaceful reality of the present moment. Listen closely to the soft, rhythmic soundtrack of the morning cleanup, a sequence of sounds so organic and quiet that they feel like a continuation of a natural lullaby. The cook lifts the empty wooden bowls and places them gently inside a large, shallow wooden trough. The sound of wood meeting wood is incredibly soft, a low, muffled thud that carries no harsh edges or sudden shocks to the nervous system. Next, the cook reaches for the heavy earthenware pitcher of cold well water that has stood in the dark corner all night. As the clear, fresh water is poured into the washing trough, it creates a clean, musical splashing sound, a liquid melody that instantly refreshes the air and brings a beautiful sense of purity and renewal to the warm room. With a piece of coarse, hand-woven linen cloth, the cook begins to wash each wooden bowl by hand. The movement is slow, circular and rhythmic, a soft, whispering sound of wet linen sliding over smooth, seasoned wood. Each bowl is treated with a quiet reverence, honoured for its simple utility and the nourishment it held. The sunlight streaming through the window catches the fine spray of water as the bowls are rinsed, creating tiny dancing rainbows that shimmer for a fraction of a second in the air before vanishing. There is an immense therapeutic beauty in this simple labour. It is not viewed as a chore to be completed as quickly as possible, but as a peaceful ritual of gratitude, a way of maintaining the perfect order and cleanliness of the sanctuary. After each bowl is washed, it is gently wiped dry with a fresh cloth and placed upside down on the long open wooden shelves against the lime-washed wall. The sound of the dry pottery and wood settling into their proper places is a soft, satisfying click, a small monument to an orderly, mindful life. The cook then returns to the large ashwood table, using the damp linen cloth to wipe down the smooth surface. The hand moves in long, sweeping strokes from one end of the table to the other, collecting the stray crumbs of rye bread and the tiny dried drops of honey. The damp wood glistens under the direct sunlight, revealing the deep, rich history of its grains before drying slowly back into its soft, matted texture. The hearth fire has now settled into a gentle domestic purr. The small golden flames have done their work of cooking the breakfast, and now they dance lazily around the thick birch logs, giving off a steady, dry warmth that ensures the kitchen remains perfectly insulated and dry. The wisp of blue wood smoke that rises from the chimney has become thin and translucent, blending entirely into the brilliant blue of the morning sky. The kitchen has been fully restored to its state of pristine readiness. The table is clean, the bowls are put away, the water jars are quiet, and the air remains richly fragrant with the comforting grounding scents of warm oak ash, sweet lavender, and fresh herbal tea. The listener is invited to completely let go within this scene of perfect restoration. Allow your thoughts to be washed clean by the gentle liquid sounds of the morning routine, leaving your mind as clear and flat as the water inside the clay jars. Feel the heavy, absolute security of your surroundings, knowing that your personal sanctuary is fully ordered, fully protected, and entirely safe from any outside disruption. Breathe in the fresh, sun-warmed air of this medieval dawn, letting the grounding energy of the stone and wood settle deep into your bones. The night has finished its work, the morning has brought its blessings, and you are entirely free to rest, to float, and to sleep within the quiet, eternal embrace of this beautiful, healing world. The golden light of the morning sun has now reached its most beautiful, dramatic angle, pouring through the small, thick glass pane of the kitchen window in long, solid beams of amber radiance. These majestic spears of light, often called the sun's fingers, cut diagonally across the dim upper air of the stone room, creating a brilliant visual bridge between the outer world of nature and the sacred interior of the cottage. Inside these thick river-stone walls, all physical tasks have been completely fulfilled, and the kitchen has entered a new, deeply profound state of stillness. The family has stepped outside to tend to the gentle needs of the morning garden, leaving the room entirely to the sunbeams, the shadows, and the eternal, slow-moving currents of peace that have anchored this home for centuries. Look with absolute stillness of mind at the beautiful, weightless ballet occurring inside these diagonal streams of light. Millions of tiny golden dust motes, invisible in the darkness of the night, are now illuminated like tiny stars, dancing and swirling in a slow, hypnotic motion that defies gravity. They do not hurry. They drift up and down, responding to the invisible, warm thermal currents rising from the stone hearth. Watching this silent golden dance acts as a powerful balm for the mind, slowing down the heartbeat and inviting the listener's thoughts to become just as light, just as free, and just as untethered from the heavy burdens of modern time and digital distraction. The long ashwood table sits directly in the path of the primary sunbeam, receiving the full, direct warmth of the morning. The wood, seasoned by generations of fire and care, absorbs the solar energy like a living creature. Under the intense light, the unique geography of the table surface becomes beautifully clear. The fine, wavy lines of the tree rings, the soft, dark depressions where heavy iron knives once rested, and the smooth satin patches polished by the cook's hands over the years. The dampness from the linen cleaning cloth has completely evaporated, leaving the wood dry, clean, and emitting a faint, warm scent of toasted grain and native timber that adds a grounding, earthy depth to the atmosphere of the room. Across the room, the open wooden shelves are fully illuminated, showing the perfect, orderly arrangement of the household treasures. The hand-carved wooden bowls sit in a neat, inverted row, their smooth undersides catching the amber glow. Beside them, the large clay water jars stand like silent stone sentinels, the clear well water inside completely flat, acting as a flawless dark mirror that reflects a tiny golden square of the window light. There is an immense, unshakable dignity in this simplicity. Every object in this kitchen has a purpose, a history, and a soul. Nothing is mass-produced, nothing is temporary, and everything is respected as a vital partner in the daily ritual of human survival and comfort. On the stone hearth, the birch logs have burned down to a beautiful stable bed of bright orange coals covered in a delicate filigree of silver ash. The fire no longer throws long shadows or creates loud crackling noises. It has settled into a deep, silent hum of pure heat. This residual warmth moves in a gentle circular pattern through the room, lifting the soothing scent of the dried lavender, sage and thyme bundles hanging from the dark rafters and carrying it softly down again, creating a continuous, invisible cycle of fragrance that purifies the air and calms the human nervous system to its very core. It is the ultimate architecture of safety, a space perfectly balanced between the fresh, crisp energy of the dawn and the warm, protective memory of the night. The listener is invited to completely immerse themselves within this golden suspended moment of time. Allow your mind to become as still and clear as the sun-drenched air of this ancient kitchen, letting the beauty of the silent sunbeams dissolve any remaining traces of stress or anxiety. Feel the heavy absolute security of your own bed, knowing that you are fully supported, deeply cared for, and completely protected by the enduring stability of the world around you. Breathe in the clean, warm fragrance of the wood smoke and the sun-warmed wood, letting it fill your soul with a profound sense of peace, completion, and well-being. The cycle of the dark has finished. The day has begun in perfect harmony, and you are entirely free to rest, to float, and to dream within the timeless sanctuary of this beautiful medieval morning. The morning has now reached its full golden maturity at the 7th hour of the dawn. Across the entire expanse of the ancient medieval valley, the world moves with a slow, majestic heartbeat that feels completely unhurried by the concept of mechanical time. Outside the thick, protective stone walls of the cottage, the vast landscape unfolds like a living masterwork of peace and green vitality. On the distant rolling hillsides, the village flock of sheep moves like soft white clouds across the rich emerald pastures, their low, occasional bleating carrying through the crisp air with a beautifully comforting rustic cadence. The gentle morning breeze whispers softly through the high canopy of the ancient oak forest, creating a continuous rhythmic rustling of leaves that sounds like the very breath of the earth itself, slow, steady, and infinitely calming. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, this grand outer peace is gathered and concentrated within the quiet architecture of wood and stone. The long diagonal sunbeams have moved slightly across the room, now illuminating the far wall and casting a warm amber glow over the heavy oak door and its polished iron latch. The air inside remains a perfect dry haven of total safety, thick with the rich, grounding perfumes of the spent wood fire, the sweet dry essence of the barley husks, and the deeply relaxing herbal notes of the lavender and sage bundles hanging motionless from the dark, soot-stained rafters. There is absolutely no noise here, no digital static, no echo of modern demands, only the pure, unadulterated weight of an ancient present moment, holding the space in absolute equilibrium. Let your consciousness expand into this wider world of natural harmony and domestic security. Look at the small wooden windowsill, where a tiny rogue sunbeam has caught a single forgotten grain of rye wheat. The tiny golden seed glows with a brilliant, individual light, a small monument to the seasonal cycles of planting, waiting and harvesting that have sustained human life on this soil for 1,000 years. There is an immense, therapeutic wisdom in this perspective, the realization that the worries of a single day are entirely insignificant when placed against the long, slow, and beautifully reliable continuity of the earth and its seasons. The cottage has witnessed this exact transition into light thousands of times, and it stands today as a solid, unyielding promise of shelter and care. If you turn your gaze toward the hearth, you will see that the fire has completed its active transformation, leaving behind a magnificent glowing field of deep crimson coals nestled beneath their silver velvet armour of ash. This silent subterranean heat continues to radiate a gentle, uniform warmth throughout the kitchen, ensuring that the room remains completely insulated from the fresh, cool air of the morning valleys. It is a beautiful state of non-action. The fire is no longer burning, yet its vital energy remains entirely present, holding the home in a state of perfect, cozy readiness for whatever the future may bring. It is the ultimate reflection of the listener's own spirit at rest, quiet, centered, and deeply restored by the sanctuary of the night. Through the open kitchen casement, the soft, clean scent of the morning air blends with the warm wood smoke, creating an aromatic tonic that gently clears the mind and soothes the human nervous system to its very depth. The family has fully integrated into the gentle tasks of the outdoor day, leaving the kitchen to rest in its own beautiful, sun-drenched solitude. The clean wooden bowls on the shelves, the empty ash table, and the cold iron cauldron all exist in a state of pure, uncomplicated being. They do not strive, they do not compete, and they do not worry. They simply rest where they are, fully aligned with the slow, natural purpose of their existence. The listener is invited to fully surrender the last remaining fragments of tension to this vast ocean of tranquility. Let your breathing slow down until it matches the magnificent, rolling rhythm of the wind through the distant oaks. Allow your physical body to sink heavily and securely into your bed, feeling the absolute, unbreakable protection of your surroundings, just like the solid foundation of this medieval stone home. There is no past to rewrite, and there is no future to conquer in this room. There is only this beautiful, golden, and eternal state of perfect peace, holding you softly, caring for you deeply, and inviting your soul to drift into the deepest, most restorative layers of quiet, healing rest. The golden ocean of morning light has now reached its full, brilliant crest, submerging the entire medieval landscape in a radiant, unclouded clarity. At this beautiful hour of 7:15, the sun sits high enough to cast a warm, direct gaze through the small glass window of the cottage, illuminating not just the floor but the entire volume of the kitchen sanctuary. Outside, the world is moving with a majestic, organic fluidness that feels completely disconnected from the frantic urgency of modern life. A soft, playful morning breeze rolls down from the green crests of the high hills, rippling through the wild clover and dandelion patches of the meadows, before flowing gently toward the stone cottage, carrying with it the pure, intoxicating essence of a world that is completely alive, completely clean, and at perfect peace with itself. As this gentle breeze passes through the open wooden casement of the kitchen, it creates a beautiful, whispering dialogue with the warm air inside. The coolness of the outdoor wind, smelling of wet earth, fresh-cut grass, and wild mountain blossoms, meets the deep, dry warmth of the stone hearth, which still smells richly of burnt oak and sweet lavender. This physical intersection of elements creates a wonderful, soothing movement in the room, an invisible, slow-motion wave of temperature and fragrance that gently caresses the skin and invites the human nervous system to dissolve its final, microscopic remnants of protective tension. It is a sensory lullaby designed by nature, a perfect balance of fresh vitality and deep grounding comfort. Look upward toward the dark, soot-seasoned wooden rafters and observe the very subtle movement of the dried herb bundles. Under the touch of the morning breeze, the long stalks of wild lavender, sage and mint sway with an almost imperceptible regular rhythm, like a silent pendulum measuring a time that has no deadlines. This gentle motion releases a fresh, concentrated wave of their calming oils into the sunbeams, mixing beautifully with the fading aroma of the honeyed morning pottage. The light cutting through the room reveals the true, unadorned beauty of the space, the white limestone walls reflecting the amber glow, the dark iron crane hanging completely still over the sleeping coals, and the clean ashwood table standing as a solid monument to domestic security. Let your mind drift entirely within this light, floating atmosphere of the sun-drenched room. There is absolutely nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to accomplish, and no digital echo to break the sacred density of this historical rest. Every object in this kitchen has completed its nightly transformation, and now exists in a state of pure, effortless being. The wooden trenchers on the shelves are completely dry, catching tiny golden glints on their rims. The large clay jars hold their cold water in perfect stillness, and the stone floor holds the heavy foundation of the home, with an absolute, unyielding strength that has defied the passage of centuries. You're looking at a space that knows how to survive, how to protect, and how to maintain peace. In this beautiful hour of clarity, the mind of the listener is invited to mimic the absolute surrender of the physical world. Let your thoughts become as light and weightless as the golden dust motes floating inside the sunbeams, dancing slowly without anywhere to arrive, entirely content with the simple beauty of the present. Allow your body to absorb the profound historical security of this stone cottage, recognizing that you are wrapped in a protective mantle of human care and natural law that is completely unbreakable. The turning of the earth has brought the day. The hearth fire has preserved the life, and the wind has purified the sanctuary, leaving nothing for you to do but to simply exist, to receive and to be held. Breathe in deeply, drawing the clean, sweet mixture of morning wind and oak wood smoke into the furthest corners of your lungs. Let the exhaling breath carry away the very last weight of your daily concerns, leaving your spirit as wide, clear, and peaceful as the blue sky stretching over the medieval valley. The cycle of the dark night has been beautifully closed, and the morning has arrived with a gentle promise of eternal continuity and care. Lean back into the soft, supportive embrace of your world, let your eyes rest in the warm amber glow of this ancient kitchen, and drift away into a deep, beautiful state of absolute, unshakable tranquillity. The bright, honey-coloured light of the fully awakened morning now fills every hidden corner of the stone kitchen, slowing down the very passage of time until it feels like a soft, motionless ocean of absolute peace. At exactly 7:30, the sun has reached a perfect, glorious position in the clear blue sky, casting a warm and unyielding amber blanket across the entire medieval valley. Outside the cottage, the natural world has settled into a rhythmic, comforting hum. The gentle rustle of the high oak branches, the distant musical murmur of the valley stream, and the warm breeze kissing the wild clover fields. Inside these thick river-stone walls, however, a profound and majestic stillness reigns supreme, a holy quietude that wraps around the room like a heavy silk veil, freezing the present moment in a state of unhurried perfection. Let your awareness rest completely upon the incredible warmth that now saturates every physical surface of this ancient sanctuary. The long diagonal sunbeams are no longer moving. They have anchored themselves across the great ashwood table, soaking deep into the seasoned grain of the timber. If you could place your hand upon that smooth surface, you would feel the comforting, organic heat of the sun accumulated and held by the wood like a living memory. The dark iron cauldron, hanging completely still over the hearth, catches the light on its curved side, glowing with a soft, silver-grey sheen that speaks of endless winters survived and thousands of fires tended. Everything in this room has absorbed the light, turning the kitchen into a radiant, self-sustaining battery of deep physical comfort. Look down toward the large river stones of the kitchen floor, where the golden light stretches in wide luminous pathways. The cool, damp shadows that filled the ground during the midnight hours have been completely chased away, replaced by a dry, welcoming warmth that rises softly into the air. The fine, pale grey ash on the hearth sits in absolute, undisturbed silence, looking like a soft bed of velvet under the direct touch of the sunbeams. There is a deep, therapeutic power in this complete absence of motion. Nothing is changing, nothing is demanding attention, and nothing is waiting to be repaired. The entire kitchen is simply resting in its own beauty, fully satisfied with the work of the night and completely content with the presence of the day. Allow your mind to become as still and unmoving as the white limestone walls of the cottage. Let your thoughts lose their shape, dissolving into the warm golden atmosphere that fills the room, until there is not a single ripple of worry or planning left in your consciousness. In this historical sanctuary, you are fully permitted to detach from the frantic pace of the modern world, to disconnect from the digital networks, and to step into a timeless realm where survival is simple, honest, and entirely taken care of. The heavy clay jars hold their pure water, the shelves hold their clean wooden bowls, and the solid roof of thatch and oak stands firmly between you and the infinite sky, offering an unbreakable guarantee of total protection. Breathe in the rich, complex fragrance of the morning, letting it move slowly through your body like a healing balm. It is a scent that carries the deep, grounding weight of ancient wood ash, the delicate floral sweetness of sun-warmed lavender, and the fresh, crisp vitality of the outdoor forest breeze. With each slow inhalation, feel your chest expand with a sense of pure, uncomplicated gratitude. With each slow exhalation, feel your muscles release their final hidden layers of structural tension, sinking deeper and heavier into the absolute support of your bed. You are just as safe, just as warm, and just as deeply guarded as the sleeping children in the alcove of this medieval home. The day has arrived, but it brings no rush, no pressure, and no expectations. The kitchen has performed its sacred ritual of preservation, the fire has handed its warmth over to the sun, and the world is inviting you to remain right here, suspended in the eternal golden light of this beautiful morning. Close your eyes to the outer world, let your spirit float within the weightless ballet of the sunbeams, and sink down, further and deeper, into the softest, most radiant embrace of this peaceful, rejuvenating sanctuary. The golden amber radiance of the mid-morning sun has now transformed the entire stone kitchen into a vast luminous vault of pure solid warmth. At exactly 7:45, the light is no longer a collection of separate beams, it has become a single breathing atmosphere that dissolves every remaining shadow into a soft, glowing twilight of amber and pearl. Outside the thick cottage walls, the medieval valley is bathed in a profound, unhurried brilliance. The morning breeze has settled into a faint, warm whisper that gently rustles the edge of the thatch roof, while the distant, rhythmic lowing of cattle from the valley floor acts as a deep, acoustic anchor, grounding the entire landscape in a state of absolute, unshakable permanence and peace. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, the sheer density of the silence has become something magical and deeply therapeutic. The air is perfectly still, holding on to a wonderful dry heat generated by the dual power of the glowing hearth and the intense solar energy pouring through the small glass pane. Every object in the room appears to be basking in a state of quiet, eternal satisfaction. The long ashwood table, now fully illuminated from end to end, glows with a rich, honeyed skin, its ancient grain lines twisting like slow rivers of gold across the dark timber. There is no human presence in the room right now, yet the kitchen feels completely alive, alive with the spirit of home, protection, and the continuous, unbroken cycle of human care. Let your gaze drift slowly toward the upper wooden shelves, where the rows of simple earthenware jars are catching the direct morning light. The rough, textured clay of the pottery absorbs the sunbeams, revealing the fine finger grooves left by the potter's wheel hundreds of years ago. Beside them, the small dark metal rims of the iron canisters gleam softly, casting tiny sharp reflections that dance quietly upon the lime-washed stone wall behind them. There is a magnificent, comforting weight in this view, the realization that these simple, honest materials have stood the test of countless seasons, remaining completely unchanged, completely stable, and entirely dedicated to their humble purpose of guarding the household's sustenance. If you listen with absolute undivided stillness to the heartbeat of this room, you can feel your own mind sinking with its slow, monumental cadence. The pale grey blanket of ash on the hearth remains perfectly flat and undisturbed, fully insulating the last remaining core of secret crimson heat deep below. The bundles of dried lavender, thyme, and wild marjoram hanging from the soot-darkened rafters are entirely motionless. Yet the rising warmth of the room coaxes a continuous, invisible stream of their essential oils into the air. This rich fragrance, mixing with the clean, dry smell of toasted barley husks and the sweet undertone of old oak wood smoke, creates an incredibly powerful, grounding perfume that instantly quietens the nervous system and coaxes the spirit into a state of total surrender. Allow your consciousness to spread out across this sun-drenched stone floor, becoming as wide, flat, and peaceful as the golden pathways of light beneath you. There are no modern complications to untangle in this historical sanctuary, no digital alerts to shatter the crystal-clear quietude, and no expectations waiting to be fulfilled. The world is granting you perfect, unconditional permission to simply be, to let go of the past, to release the future, and to dissolve completely into the warm, protective embrace of the present moment. You are entirely safe, completely insulated from the frantic speed of the outer world, and guarded by the unyielding strength of these ancient riverstone walls. Breathe in this golden morning air with a slow, magnificent depth, letting the warmth expand within your chest like a wave of pure comfort. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft layers of your bed as if you were resting upon the cook's deep straw and wool mattress. Your mind is now as clear and still as the water inside the large clay jars, free from any ripples of thought, entirely content to float within the timeless glowing soul of this beautiful sanctuary. The night has gone, the day has arrived in perfect harmony, and you are invited to drift away into the deepest, most rejuvenating layers of peaceful, eternal sleep. The morning has now marched to its absolute golden peak at exactly 5 minutes before the 8th hour of the dawn. The sun has lifted itself completely above the ancient oak forest, transforming its early rose and amber whispers into a heavy, continuous flood of rich, honeyed light that totally saturates the interior of the stone kitchen. Outside the cottage, the medieval world moves with a slow, eternal fluidness that completely ignores the very concept of hurry. The wind through the high leaves has dropped to a mere breath, a lazy sigh that carries the faint, sweet scent of warm earth, sun-baked grass, and the opening petals of wild valley daisies. Inside these thick river stone walls, however, the air has entered a state of supreme, majestic suspension, a perfect crystal-clear density where every single atom of the room seems to be held in a divine, everlasting embrace of total peace. Let your mind rest entirely upon the heavy, deep texture of the silence that now occupies this space. It is not an empty silence, but a rich, physical presence, a comforting weight that blankets the room like a thick velvet mantle, smoothing away any remaining sharp edges of time or thought. The long diagonal spears of sunlight have widened into great golden sheets of radiance that cover nearly the entire surface of the long ashwood table. If you look closely at the wood, you can see the tiny, beautiful fibres of the grain drinking in the solar warmth, absorbing the energy until the timber itself appears to be glowing from within. Every soft dent, every dark scar left by ancient iron knives, is now illuminated with a quiet, historical dignity, showing a life well lived, well protected, and completely at peace. Across the room, the large clay water jars stand in their permanent corner, half submerged in the warm amber twilight. The surface of the well water inside them is so perfectly flat, clear, and cold that it reflects the changing patterns of the sky outside like a dark, flawless mirror, completely undisturbed by the slight movements of the morning breeze. On the open wooden shelves against the lime-washed wall, the hand-carved wooden trenchers and bowls sit in their neat inverted rows, their smooth rims catching tiny brilliant glints of gold from the window light. There is an immense, unshakable sanctuary in this absolute lack of modern clutter. Every object in this kitchen has survived the dark hours without losing its anchor, performing its silent duty of simply being present, stable and true. On the stone hearth, the magnificent bed of crimson embers has now fully transformed into a peaceful sleeping field of pure white and silver ash. The fire has given all of its vital energy away to protect the home through the freezing night mist, and now it rests in its final, most beautiful state of absolute non-action. Yet the heavy river stones of the fireplace continue to radiate a gentle, uniform thermal wave that travels slowly through the lower air of the room, keeping the kitchen perfectly dry, warm, and insulated. This residual heat lifts the soothing medicinal fragrances of the dried lavender, mint, and thyme bundles hanging from the dark wooden rafters, turning the air into an aromatic tonic that gently lulls the nervous system and coaxes the spirit into a state of total blissful surrender. Allow your own consciousness to become as quiet, flat, and warm as the sun-drenched floor beneath you. There are no modern problems to solve in this ancient room, no digital screens to fracture your attention, and no ticking clocks to demand your energy. The universe is granting you perfect, unconditional permission to completely untether your mind from the wheel of productivity. Let your thoughts float like the weightless golden dust motes inside the sunbeams, drifting without anywhere to go, fully satisfied with the simple beauty of the present moment. You are entirely safe, completely whole, and deeply guarded by the timeless architecture of this historical home which has held human life in its warm embrace for generations. breathe in this honeyed morning air with a long, slow and magnificent depth, letting the warmth settle into the absolute center of your chest. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon a cloud of sweet straw and lavender wool. The night has finished its work, the day has arrived in perfect harmony, and the kitchen stands fully ready, fully clean, and completely still. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary, and drift away into the deepest, most radiant layers of peaceful, rejuvenating, and eternal sleep. The golden rotation of the medieval world reaches its perfect, most magnificent milestone as the sun claims the exact 8th hour of the morning. The sky outside has transformed into a brilliant, unclouded dome of purest blue, shedding a warm, continuous flood of liquid amber that totally submerges the stone cottage and the vast rolling valley beyond. Outside, the world is alive with the gentle, rhythmic hum of a peaceful existence, the soft, distant tinkling of sheep bells on the green hills, the musical whisper of the valley breeze through the high oak leaves, and the sweet, clean fragrance of wild roses opening to meet the light. Inside these thick river-stone walls, however, time has completely dissolved, leaving behind a magnificent, heavy stillness that holds the room in a state of eternal, unhurried perfection. Let your mind float entirely within the thick, physical density of the quiet that now occupies this space. The long diagonal sunbeams have widened into vast unbroken sheets of radiant warmth, covering the entire surface of the long ashwood table and painting the lime-washed stone walls in shades of soft honey and pearl. If you look at the wood of the table, you can see every rich grain line, every soft dent from years of honest use, warming up under the touch of the sunbeams. The dark iron cauldron hanging motionless over the hearth glows with a quiet silver-grey dignity, representing the unshakable stability of a home that has survived the cold, dark hours without losing its vital energy. There is no rush here, no digital static, and no modern schedules pressing down upon the human spirit. Across the room, the beautiful open wooden shelves hold the hand-carved bowls and clay jars in perfect orderly readiness. The clear well water inside the large earthenware jars is completely flat and still, acting as a flawless dark mirror that reflects the bright square of the morning window without a single ripple. Under the touch of the morning breeze slipping through the casement, the dried herb bundles hanging from the dark rafters, the wild lavender, dried sage, and thyme sway with an almost imperceptible regular movement, releasing a fresh, concentrated wave of their calming oils into the sunbeams. This rich, clean fragrance mixes beautifully with the warm scent of the spent wood fire, creating an incredibly powerful, grounding perfume that instantly quietens the nervous system. On the stone hearth, the magnificent bed of embers has finally completed its structural duty, settling into a peaceful, sleeping field of pure silver ash. The fire has given all of its hidden warmth away to protect the home through the freezing night mist, and now it rests in its final, most beautiful state of absolute non-action. Yet the heavy river stones of the fireplace continue to radiate a gentle, uniform thermal wave that travels slowly through the lower air of the room, keeping the kitchen perfectly dry and warm. It is the ultimate architecture of safety, a space perfectly balanced between the fresh, crisp energy of the dawn and the warm, protective memory of the night, offering an unbreakable guarantee of total, unconditional care. Allow your own consciousness to become as quiet, flat, and warm as the sun-drenched floor beneath you. There are no modern problems to solve in this ancient room, no expectations to fulfill, and no digital screens to fracture your attention. Let your thoughts lose their shape, dissolving like weightless golden dust motes inside the sunbeams, drifting without anywhere to go, fully satisfied with the simple beauty of the present moment. You are entirely safe, completely whole, and deeply guarded by the timeless heritage of this historical home. The night has passed, the house has kept its promise of perfect protection, and you are permitted to rest in this radiant, timeless peace for as long as your spirit desires. Breathe in this honeyed morning air with a long, slow and magnificent depth, letting the warmth expand within your chest like a wave of pure comfort. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon a cloud of sweet straw and lavender wool. The world is safe, the hearth is quiet, and the day has arrived in perfect harmony. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary and drift away into the deepest, most beautiful layer of peaceful, rejuvenating and eternal sleep. The bright, honeyed atmosphere of the fully established morning has now locked the stone kitchen into a state of absolute, unbreakable timelessness. At exactly 15 minutes past the 8th hour of the dawn, the sun sits like a great golden shield in the unclouded sky, pouring a dense, continuous river of liquid amber directly through the small glass pane of the window. Outside the cottage, the grand medieval valley has completed its slow awakening and now lives within a quiet, rhythmic lullaby. The gentle, distant song of birds in the apple orchard, the lazy rustle of the high oak canopy under the warm breeze, and the faint earthy fragrance of fields warming under the sun. Inside these thick river-stone walls, however, all progressive motion has stopped, leaving behind a magnificent, heavy density of peace that holds the space in perfect, suspended equilibrium. Let your awareness slow down completely, mirroring the incredible weightless ballet that is occurring inside the primary sunbeam. Millions of tiny golden dust motes, illuminated by the bright solar light, float in the air like a galaxy of minuscule, silent stars. They do not drop, they do not hurry, and they do not scatter. They move with an exquisite, slow-motion grace, drifting up and down upon the gentle, invisible thermal currents rising from the warm stone floor. Watching this silent, weightless dance acts as an immediate sedative for the human mind, dissolving the artificial speed of modern thoughts and inviting your consciousness to become just as light, just as free, and just as completely untethered from the heavy burdens of mechanical time. The long ashwood table stands directly in the centre of this golden flood, acting as a great warm altar of domestic peace. The timber, dried and seasoned by the fires of many generations, has absorbed the solar heat to its very core, radiating a dry, organic warmth that fills the lower air of the room. Every fine, wavy line of its tree rings, every dark notch left by the cook's tools, and every smooth satin patch polished by years of human hands is now illuminated with a quiet, historical majesty. There is no clutter here, no artificial substances and no digital reminders to pull you away from the present moment. There is only the honest, grounding presence of native wood, solid river stone and pure clay, all resting together in an eternal harmonious alliance of safety and care. Across the room, the large clay water jars stand quietly in their permanent shadows, holding the cold well water in such absolute stillness that the liquid surface looks like a dark sheet of polished obsidian. On the open wooden shelves, the hand-carved wooden trenchers catch brilliant, tiny glints of gold on their circular edges, looking like miniature suns resting against the clean, lime-washed wall. On the hearth, the silver-white blanket of ash remains completely undisturbed, perfectly insulating the last secret core of ancient crimson heat deep beneath. The bundles of dried lavender, mint and sage hanging from the dark wooden rafters are entirely motionless, yet the warm air coaxes a steady, invisible stream of their soothing oils into the room, creating an incredibly rich, comforting perfume that wraps around your senses like a thick wool blanket. Allow your own spirit to expand and dissolve into this warm, golden and silent space. There are no problems to solve within this historical sanctuary, no digital notifications to break the spell of absolute tranquility, and no expectations waiting to be met. The world is granting you perfect, unconditional permission to drop your defenses, to release the weights of your modern life, and to step into a timeless realm where survival is simple, honest, and entirely taken care of by the structural wisdom of the home. You are entirely safe, completely whole, and deeply guarded by the unyielding strength of these thick stone walls, which have successfully protected human life from the coldness of the world for hundreds of years. Breathe in this rich, sun-warmed morning air with a slow, magnificent depth, letting the fragrance of old wood smoke and sweet lavender settle into the absolute center of your chest. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon the cook's deep straw and wool mattress. Your mind is now as clear and flat as the water inside the clay jars, free from any ripples of anxiety, entirely content to float within the timeless glowing soul of this beautiful medieval dawn. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient house and drift away into the deepest, most beautiful layers of peaceful, rejuvenating, and eternal sleep. The golden amber brilliance of the morning has now reached a state of complete, magnificent saturation inside the ancient stone kitchen. At exactly 8:30, the sun sits high and proud in the unclouded sky, pouring an endless heavy river of liquid light through the small wooden casement window. This light is no longer a collection of distinct beams moving across the room. It has expanded and dissolved into a single glowing atmosphere of pure gold and soft pearl that fills every cubic inch of the space. Outside, the medieval valley lives within a majestic, slow-moving rhythm of perfect peace. The gentle rustle of the high oak branches, the soft murmur of the clean valley stream, and the faint, sweet scent of morning meadows. Inside the cottage, however, all progress has faded into an eternal, motionless tranquillity, holding the home in a state of absolute, unshakable sanctuary. Let your mind rest completely within the deep physical thickness of the silence that now occupies this historical space. The intense warmth of the morning sun has soaked deep into the white limestone walls of the kitchen, creating a gentle thermal envelope that reflects the amber glow back into the room. If you look at the large ashwood table standing in the center of the floor, you can see how the dry timber has drank in the solar energy, its ancient tree rings and dark knife marks softened and warmed by the continuous light. There is no human hurry here, no ticking clocks to demand your energy, and no digital static to fracture your thoughts. Every single object in this kitchen exists in a state of pure, effortless being, fully satisfied with the transition from the cold night into the glorious protection of the day. Across the room, the open wooden shelves display the hand-carved wooden bowls and heavy clay jars in perfect, orderly readiness. The cold well water inside the large earthenware containers remains completely flat, clear, and still, acting as a flawless dark mirror that reflects the bright square of the window without a single ripple upon its surface. Under the touch of the faint breeze slipping through the glass pane, the bundles of dried lavender, mint and sage, hanging from the dark rafters, sway with an almost invisible regular movement. This slow dance releases a fresh, concentrated wave of their soothing botanical oils into the air, mixing beautifully with the warm, clean scent of the spent wood fire to create an incredibly powerful, grounding perfume that instantly calms the human nervous system. On the stone hearth, the silver-white field of ash remains entirely undisturbed, perfectly guarding the last secret core of ancient crimson heat, deep beneath its velvet blanket. The fire has beautifully completed its active duty of keeping the family safe and warm through the freezing midnight mist, and now it rests in its final, most comforting state of non-action. Yet the heavy river stones of the fireplace continue to radiate a gentle, uniform warmth that travels slowly through the lower air of the kitchen, ensuring that the space remains a dry, cozy haven of total safety. It is the ultimate architecture of care, a room perfectly insulated from the chaos of the outer world, offering an unbreakable guarantee of physical protection and spiritual restoration. Allow your own consciousness to become as quiet, flat, and warm as the sun-drenched floor beneath you. There are no problems to solve within this historical sanctuary, no expectations to fulfill, and no digital reminders to pull you away from the present moment. Let your thoughts lose their boundaries, dissolving like the weightless golden dust motes that float inside the sunbeams, drifting slowly without anywhere to arrive, entirely content with the simple beauty of being. You are completely safe, entirely whole, and deeply protected by the unyielding strength of these thick stone walls, which have successfully shielded human life from the vulnerabilities of the world for hundreds of seasons. Breathe in this rich, honeyed morning air with a long, slow, and magnificent depth, letting the fragrance of old wood smoke and sweet lavender settle into the absolute center of your chest. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon a cloud of sweet straw and warm wool. The world is at peace, the hearth is quiet, and the day has arrived in perfect harmony. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary and drift away into the deepest, most beautiful layers of peaceful, rejuvenating and eternal sleep. The golden tapestry of the morning has now woven itself into a permanent, unyielding monument of pure tranquility as the sun approaches the final quarter of the 8th hour. At exactly 8:45, the medieval valley outside has slowed its heartbeat to a deep rhythmic whisper that feels infinitely removed from the concept of modern hurry. The bright honeyed light has fully conquered every square inch of the stone cottage, casting a thick warm blanket of amber and pearl over the ancient surfaces. Inside these thick river stone walls, the air has become a dense, sensory sanctuary. A place where the boundaries of time have completely dissolved, leaving only the pure, uncomplicated reality of total safety, absolute comfort, and unconditional protection for the spirit. Listen closely to the magnificent heavy texture of the silence that has now completely settled inside this historical kitchen. It is a quietude so rich and structural that it feels like a physical embrace, smoothing away the very last microscopic ripples of tension within the human mind. The long horizontal sheets of sunlight lay motionless across the great ashwood table, baking into the seasoned timber and releasing a faint warm aroma of native forest and dried grains. Every line in the wood, every soft indentation carved by ancient hands, is bathed in a glorious golden dignity. There are no digital signals here, no voices calling for attention, and no tasks waiting to be finished. The room has completed its sacred daily transition and now exists in a state of perfect, effortless grace. Across the room, the large clay water jars stand like ancient stone guardians in their warm, amber-lit corner. The surface of the cold well water inside them is so perfectly flat and undisturbed that it mirrors the bright wooden rafters above without a single tremor, holding the purity of the earth in absolute stillness. On the open shelves, the hand-carved wooden bowls sit in their neat, quiet rows, their smooth curves catching tiny, brilliant glints of gold that look like sleeping stars against the clean, lime-washed limestone wall. Under the soft touch of the morning wind breathing through the window, the dried herb bundles, the wild lavender, mountain sage and sweet thyme sway with an almost imperceptible regular rhythm, sending a continuous invisible wave of their calming botanical oils into the golden air. On the stone hearth, the silver-white field of ash rests in absolute undisturbed peace, fully guarding the last secret core of ancient crimson heat deep beneath its velvet protection. The fire has beautifully completed its long nocturnal duty of keeping the home safe and warm through the freezing valley mist, and now it rests in its final, most comforting state of non-action. Yet the heavy river stones of the fireplace continue to radiate a gentle, uniform thermal wave that travels slowly through the lower air of the kitchen, ensuring that the space remains a dry, cozy haven of total sanctuary. It is the ultimate architecture of care, a room perfectly insulated from the chaos of the outer world, offering an unbreakable guarantee of physical protection and spiritual restoration. Allow your own consciousness to become as quiet, flat, and warm as the sun-drenched floor beneath you. There are no modern problems to solve within this historical sanctuary, no expectations to fulfill, and no digital reminders to pull you away from the present moment. Let your thoughts lose their boundaries, dissolving like the weightless golden dust motes that float inside the sunbeams, drifting slowly without anywhere to arrive, entirely content with the simple beauty of being. You are completely safe, entirely whole, and deeply protected by the unyielding strength of these thick stone walls, which have successfully shielded human life from the vulnerabilities of the world for hundreds of seasons. Breathe in this rich, honeyed morning air with a long, slow, and magnificent depth, letting the fragrance of old wood smoke and sweet lavender settle into the absolute center of your chest. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon a cloud of sweet straw and warm wool. The world is at peace, the hearth is quiet, and the day has arrived in perfect harmony. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary, and drift away into the deepest, most beautiful layers of peaceful, rejuvenating, and eternal sleep. The slow, golden wheel of the medieval morning has now turned to its absolute completion as the sun claims the exact 9th hour of the day. The bright sky outside has expanded into a vast, crystal-clear canopy of brilliant blue, sending a magnificent, unwavering flood of pure solar warmth directly into the stone cottage. At this hour, the early amber shadows have entirely vanished, replaced by a radiant, clean light that illuminates every single crevice of the ancient riverstone wall. Outside, the valley lives within a beautiful rhythmic symphony of rural peace, the soft distant humming of wild honeybees in the clover patch, the continuous lazy whisper of the warm breeze through the high oak leaves, and the gentle melodic songs of the blackbirds in the orchard, echoing softly like a distant comforting lullaby that wraps around the entire landscape. Inside the kitchen sanctuary, this intense outer light has created a profound, majestic stillness that feels completely separate from the concept of human time. The entire room is bathed in a warm, uniform glow that softens the hard edges of the stone and brings out the deep, secret beauty of the wood. The great ashwood table, now completely uncovered and clean, stands directly beneath the window, its ancient timber absorbing the sun's energy until it feels warm and smooth to the touch, like a living creature resting in the sun. There is an incredible therapeutic density in this quietness. It is a space where no modern hurry can enter, where no digital static can fracture the peace, and where the human spirit is allowed to simply stand still and dissolve into the safe, protective reality of the present moment. Look closely at the beautiful, orderly arrangement of the open wooden shelves against the lime-washed wall. The hand-carved wooden bowls and terracotta cups sit in perfect, silent rows, their smooth curves catching brilliant, tiny pinpricks of light that look like diamonds resting on dark velvet. Beside them, the large clay jars hold the fresh well water in such absolute stillness that the liquid surface looks like a dark sheet of polished glass, completely undisturbed by the slight movements of the morning air. Under the soft breathing of the wind through the casement window, the dried bundles of wild lavender, mint, and mountain sage hanging from the dark wooden rafters sway with an almost imperceptible regular cadence, sending a continuous, invisible wave of their soothing oils into the warm air of the room. On the stone hearth, the silver-white bed of ash rests in complete undisturbed peace, fully insulating the last remaining core of ancient crimson heat deep beneath its velvet armour. The fire has beautifully fulfilled its long nocturnal promise of keeping the household safe from the freezing night mist, and now it rests in its final, most comforting state of total non-action. Yet the heavy river stones of the fireplace continue to radiate a gentle, uniform thermal wave that travels slowly through the lower air of the kitchen, keeping the sanctuary perfectly dry, warm, and secure. It is the ultimate architecture of care, a space entirely balanced between the fresh vitality of the day and the deep, protective memory of the night, offering an unbreakable guarantee of physical comfort and mental restoration. Allow your own consciousness to become as quiet, flat, and warm as the sun-drenched stone floor beneath you. There are no problems to solve in this ancient room, no expectations to fulfill, and no ticking clocks to demand your energy. Let your thoughts lose their boundaries, dissolving like the weightless golden dust motes that float inside the sunbeams, drifting slowly without anywhere to arrive, entirely content with the simple beauty of being. You are completely safe, entirely whole, and deeply protected by the unyielding strength of these thick stone walls, which have successfully shielded human life from the vulnerabilities of the world for hundreds of seasons. Breathe in this rich, honeyed morning air with a long, slow, and magnificent depth, letting the fragrance of old wood smoke and sweet lavender settle into the absolute center of your chest. As you exhale, feel your physical body become incredibly heavy, sinking down through the soft, supportive layers of your bed as if you were resting upon a cloud of sweet straw and warm wool. The world is at peace, the hearth is quiet, and the day has arrived in perfect harmony. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your breath sink with the deep, slow heartbeat of this ancient sanctuary, and drift away into the deepest, most beautiful layers of peaceful, rejuvenating, and eternal sleep. And so the long, beautiful journey through the sacred hours of the medieval night and into the radiant warmth of the morning has reached its perfect, eternal completion. The sun now stands high and magnificent over the ancient valley, casting a final, unwavering blanket of pure liquid gold over the sturdy stone cottage. Every single chapter of this peaceful vigil, from the first quiet crackle of the midnight logs, the soft whispering of the night wind, and the gentle rhythm of the rain outside, to the warm, comforting boiling of the barley porridge and the sweet, amber drizzle of wild forest honey, has fulfilled its beautiful healing purpose. Each moment has woven together to create an unbreakable armor of safety, absolute comfort, and unconditional protection around your spirit, leaving the modern world and its frantic anxieties infinitely far behind. Look one last time at this beautiful stone kitchen, now completely saturated with the warm, brilliant light of a day that holds no demands, no schedules, and no expectations. The long ashwood table stands glowing in the sun, a clean and silent monument to domestic peace. The hand-carved wooden bowls rest on their shelves, completely dry and catching tiny golden stars on their polished curves. The large clay jars hold their cold well water in such perfect, undisturbed stillness that not a single ripple movement catches the eye. Everything in this historical sanctuary has done its work. The house has kept its ancient promise to preserve, to shelter, and to nurture life. And now it stands in a state of supreme, motionless grace, inviting you to stay within its embrace for as long as your soul requires. On the stone hearth, the great fire has finally gone to sleep, leaving behind a magnificent, soft field of silver-white ash that gently insulates the last, deepest core of secret heat. The air inside the room remains a perfect, warm haven, thick with the grounding and deeply therapeutic fragrances of old oak wood smoke, sun-warmed timber, and the gentle, relaxing notes of dried lavender and mountain sage hanging from the dark rafters. This scent is the very breath of home, a timeless aroma that has quieted the human nervous system for hundreds of generations, reminding the spirit that it is fully provided for, fully protected, and completely aligned with the slow, reliable, and ancient heartbeat of the earth. Let your own consciousness now take its final step into this ocean of absolute tranquility. There are no more transitions to watch, no more sounds to follow, and no more thoughts to untangle. The universe has granted you perfect, unconditional permission to completely surrender your awareness, to dissolve the boundaries of your mind and to become as light, weightless, and peaceful as the golden dust motes drifting inside the sunbeams. You have survived the dark, the day has arrived in flawless harmony, and your physical body is now incredibly heavy, sinking down deeply and securely into the soft, warm layers of your bed, fully guarded by the unyielding strength of these ancient river-stone walls. The story has finished, the sanctuary is quiet, and the light is eternal. Lean back completely into the soft, supportive mantle of this ancient peace, letting the deep warmth settle into the very center of your chest. Allow your breathing to become long, slow, and effortless, matching the grand, silent rhythm of the valley outside. You are safe, You are whole, you are entirely free to rest, to float and to dream. Close your eyes to the outer world. Let your spirit dissolve into the soft honeyed glow of this beautiful medieval dawn and drift away into the deepest, most restorative and everlasting layers of peaceful, rejuvenating sleep. Good night, sweet soul, and sleep in perfect peace. Sleepy History with Kevin is created for relaxation, entertainment and sleep purposes. The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life and real periods in history, but they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation. Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study. By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.